you are one of us. Your passion is the world of mountain biking, from enduro to gravel races and everything in between. This is Insider MTB, the podcast that takes you behind the handlebars, into the dirt, and behind the scenes of the mountain biking world. And now your host, Austin White.
There we go. Intro. I'm
There we
Austin
go.
White, you guys. Yep. This is episode 13, Lucky 13.
Bringing her in.
Kind of surprised we've made it this far. I say that on everyone. And we're not just doing like our podcast too. They're long sometimes, and we get that. So that's why I'm more surprised that we've made it this far, that you haven't turned off after past an hour. So I'm pretty stoked to see that viewership is actually like quadrupled now since episode like 5. And it's kind of crazy, but I'm here with my favorite co-host and
Your only co-host.
only co-host. Let's get real. Come on.
That's all right.
Spencer Rathkamp. What's up, bud?
Hey, that's me. What's going on? Another day in the office.
Yeah.
Episode 13. We've been both of us, I think, have been kind of all over the place. So it's been tough, but here we are, man. We got to keep knocking these puppies out, and I'm excited to be here. So let's have some fun.
Yeah. Looks like you have saved your roof now. You're back.
Hey.
You've repainted it.
Yeah, we fixed the ceiling, the leak in the ceiling. Finally, it's about time. But yeah, so we're just out here thriving.
Your jet ski career is going good.
Swinging around. Yeah, dude. Absolutely. We've been doing a lot of jet ski riding, working at Universal. Dude, I'm not even kidding. Actually, I went to lunch today, got this taco spot right down the street from my house, and some guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you work at Universal?" I'm like, "No shit, man."
No way.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, no way. I saw the Waterworld show on Tuesday and you look super familiar." And I'm like, "Dude, that's crazy." And he asked to take a picture with me.
Were you in your life vest and your full gear? You were just
No life vest.
Didn't even know.
But
Wow.
probably should have. Yeah, I know.
holy
It's crazy.
shit. You might be famous than more like top mountain bikers right now.
Hey, it's crazy that I can do a bunch of mountain bike stuff and know a lot of people, but I can't, nobody recognizes me there. And I do a show at Universal for a month, and here we
Yeah.
are. We're
Yeah,
getting
dude.
pictures.
You're just trying to find land and grow some plants on it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's fun.
So we got a guest coming up, and this is kind of our first, well, maybe not first, but
Industry
a little
plant.
bit, yeah, industry guy. We've done a lot of athletes. We
Other than
did
the
a
Sea Otter.
little bit industry at the Sea Otter one, which wasn't really published. It was more just on our YouTube. And it's a long one. If you guys want to dive into that, that's like 4 hours of me cooking in the sun and then handing it off to Spencer to do some stuff. But
For
yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
You ran the ship there.
that ship was rough. I'm glad we got through it. We had some great industry insiders. I wanted this guy on, who is about to come on, and he wasn't able to make it, which Sea Otter is chaotic. You seen, I mean, that's why you were jumping around, just, trying to get in on the podcast. So, now we finally kind of roped him in to do some stuff, but he's here. Should we let him in? Hop in.
Let's go.
Sean,
Look
what's
at that
going
guy.
on? All
What's
right,
up, guys?
here's our first guest, or our first industry guest, I would say, because we mainly do athletes. Sean Estes, and your senior, I'm going to botch this up. I already know it. Senior product marketing manager. What's the title got to be
Just say
so
marketing. You can just say marketing guy.
Marketing guy. Yeah, our marketing guy over at Fox right here. What's going on, Sean?
Not much. How are you guys doing?
We're good.
Doing well, man. Been a while.
Yeah, Spencer, good to see you, buddy.
Likewise.
We were
Austin,
doing.
I don't know that you know this, but Sean and I go way back.
We go way back.
Really?
Yeah, he's got a nickname for me that not many people know. And
No way. We
I
gotta
was
hear
going to
it.
drop it already, but then I was like, maybe I'll hold back because, Spencer, he's all grown up now. He's a stunt man. He's got all this stuff going on,
I mean,
Some things are better in the past.
Oh,
No
come
way.
on. We have to hear the nickname. Don't do this.
Maybe I'll drop it a little later.
Okay. Yeah. Sprinkle it in there. Could you just let it slide like perfectly? And he's just like, I want to see the facial expression on him.
It'll come out later.
All right, that's good.
Probably.
We'll go through the whole story.
How long have you guys known each other then?
Probably like 12 or so years, something like that.
Yeah, right when I started riding bikes, I was at Road Bike Action and Mountain Bike Action magazine, and Sean was at Specialized at the time.
Now he's rubbing it into. He's like, I've only been riding for 12 years, and look how sick I am.
That means nothing, but yeah, that was when I started riding. That was when old John Carr found me.
Old John Carr, gotta love that man.
Yep,
he's a gem.
He really is.
Yep, yeah, truly.
12 years or so. Sean
something
was
like that. Yeah.
Marketing guy over at Specialized, and he would come into the office, and I'd be this little kid that would just follow them around and
cover boy,
just be listening.
That's not the nickname, but it could have been.
That's pretty good. He just got himself another cover though.
Yeah, dude, he's good at doing that. The boy can ride a bike, you know. He make shapes, whatever they say these days, you know.
A few of those.
Is that what they say? I don't even know that. I guess I'm getting old.
They're not always good shapes though. Sean, what's up, man? Talk to us. How's life?
Life's good, man.
Where are you at?
Yeah, let's see. So, been at Fox now for 5 and almost a half years, which is kind of crazy. Time flies. I feel like part of that's just because Fox is awesome, and part of that is because COVID wasn't so awesome, and kind of all the COVID-related things that have kind of still, you know, been out there and happening and affecting all of us. But you know, it made time feel like it's not a real thing. But been at Fox over 5 years now. It's been awesome. It's a great company, having a good time, doing all kinds of fun stuff this year. We had a bunch of product launches. We have a couple more coming up. Been riding a bunch, kind of took a few years away from racing and stuff like that, and kind of getting back into it this last year, and finally getting back up to close to my old speed. So that feels good. Just been doing that, and then all kinds of house projects and all kinds of other non-bike stuff, but I don't know how much of that we want to get into.
All of it. Why not?
All of it. Yes. What are you doing? Because like I'm a homeowner now. So nice. What are you doing? How deep are you in your home?
Deep, man. Deep. Yeah. So my wife and I, we moved up to a place called Bonnie Doon that's like in the Santa Cruz Mountains. If you've ridden up in Santa Cruz before, some of the trails that are like up above the UCSC kind of trails, like up in that zone, we're like up there. Super beautiful area, a little more rural. Like it's like, you know, no cell service and like 20 minutes to the grocery store kind of a thing, but closer to the trails, and everyone's got a little bit more land. So yeah, we bought our place like right before the pandemic, right before the massive wildfires and stuff hit us. The house was all original and nothing had been redone. It was built in like 1980. And so, but we wanted that because we knew what we wanted, and we didn't want to pay for someone else's janky remodel, you know, some like Home Depot thing. So, it was perfect, you know, and we've gone through and done almost the entire interior remodel. And then it's also been just like, it's like about an acre, and we just have like, there was nothing. You couldn't even see the house from the street when we moved in. It was just so overgrown. So totally natural. So we've like landscaped and done like all kinds of stuff, but most recently we just put on a new roof, and so that kind of like led to now I'm redoing all of our siding and like refinishing all the redwood siding and stuff and taking it back down to raw. So
cool.
Are you doing it yourself? Or
yes, dude.
No way.
Yes.
Are you bored?
No, I don't get bored. I don't get a chance to get bored.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's like it was like stained like a kind of like an opaque brown color, and it looked nice enough, but like it's redwood siding. It's like shiplap redwood siding. Like, beautiful. Come on, dude. Like that's what you want, you know? So got this really bitchin' like Festool vacuum orbital sander, and like I've probably put like 75 hours into it so far, and I'm maybe 20-25% done. So
you're gonna be going through sanders for sure.
Oh yeah, big time. I got like 1 million discs, you know, so it's all good. All good.
I'm beginning to understand why you have some of the best bike builds on Instagram. I feel like I
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I do. I been in the bike industry as long as I have, and being as big of a bike dork as I am, and such a like tech, you know, I love the tech of bikes, and we can talk about that too as a whole separate thing if you guys want to. But yeah, I have a lot of fun doing builds, and got a lot of, you know, good brands and friends I've worked with over the years and stuff like that who are always generous to help out and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's like bikes are so cool because like I don't know if people think about this, but Spencer, you guys both hear this all the time, I'm sure, because we all cross over into moto a little bit. And it's like, oh, I just buy a dirt bike for that much money. Why are bikes so expensive? And like, it's such a, I'm just going to say it, and it's maybe it's a hot take and people are going to hate me, but like, it's a total false equivalence. Like you can't compare the two. Like a stock dirt bike is like going to Walmart and buying I hate to say that, but it's like buying the nicest bike you can get at Walmart.
Damn,
the nicest bike
deep
you can
right
get
now.
at Costco. It's not the bikes that people race on. Bikes that someone race on cost 60, 80 plus grand, has way more power. Everything's trick. When you go buy an S-Works, like a bike that Spencer rides or like I ride, that's the exact same bike that they're racing on at the highest level, so it's like a works bike. And then the other thing to consider there is like mountain bikes are human powered. So, and road bikes too. So from an engineering perspective, everything has to be as light as it possibly can, but also as strong as it possibly can. So I would argue like, if a dirt bike was made to that same level of standard, that would also be a works bike that's like 20 pounds lighter than a off the shelf bike, or 30 pounds. So again, it's like, it's a total false equivalence. Like, all that being said, nobody needs an S-Works, like
They do.
maybe a few people do.
Let's
I
be
don't.
real.
Spencer does. I don't. But
I don't even own an S-Works bike. Okay.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Well, they've done a good job with like the pro and expert stuff these last few years, where it's really everything you need and nothing more. But yeah, I get sick of hearing that trope from all the moto people. It's like, well, then go ride a dirt bike.
You're right though.
Whatever.
You're totally right though on the S-Works equivalent to that situation. And I love that about mountain biking, that you can buy this. I just want the factory bike. And there's a lot of vet riders that are like, I just want a total factory moto bike.
Yeah. I mean, and it's great. That's what keeps the industry going, big part of it. And I think it's super cool that you can do it. Like, you could build a, pro circuit replica bike or whatever if you had the coin and you knew the people, but you could just also walk down to your local dealer and swipe and walk away with this S-Works tomorrow and be on the same thing.
It's pretty damn close, right?
It's the same thing. Maybe there's a couple tie bolts you want to get from Better Bolts or whoever, but like, pretty much you're there, man.
But even if you did, like in moto, there'd probably be a significant advantage to getting some of these unique parts.
Mm-hmm.
But in cycling, like we were talking with BG, you know him pretty well, Brian Gordon, about basically like they're running 40 tooth on the front. Like I can get that. And it doesn't say I can ride with that, but I can try. I would never do good with it. Right.
I wouldn't make it up the first hill. Okay. So now you brought up a whole nother, I think the 40 tooth, the whole like massive front chainring thing that everyone's running. Cause like even at Downieville, these guys were running like their like full setups that they would run for like a more, they were running like, Keegan's on his like 690 bars. Cause 69 centimeters, why not? And negative, whatever, 130 stem, whatever. And 40 tooth ring. All stuff that you can objectively say is not the fastest thing for Downieville, but he's so fast that it doesn't matter. So he could afford to run. So my thinking is like, he's running shit like that as big FU to everyone else. It's like he could run a 38 or a 36 and not run out of gears and be totally fine. And probably have more clearance, whatever. He could run 720 bars with a little bit of rise and probably go faster on the downhill. But none of it matters because he's just so on a different level. And then everyone tries to copy what he's doing. Yes. And it's all psychological, but none of them can really run that shit right. Like, so then you start looking at what people bring to Leadville and you're like, who comes up with this shit? Like the bikes that some of these dudes like, and for Unbound too, man, some of the setups are just purely, I'm loving it right now in our industry because it's like, it's the Wild West all over again. It reminds me so much of like the early 90s when anything went and we were just trying stuff and throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, and it's really fun. But I think a lot of it is complete bullshit. It will turn out to be, but it's also super fun to go through. And I love the process of figuring out which stuff does work and which stuff doesn't. It's pretty cool.
We actually had Keegan and them on, Keegan and
Tobin
McTubbin on, and they were talking about how they do stuff like that to mess with people.
100%.
They're gamers. They're gamers, man. Yeah.
I love that.
Old school moto vibes.
Some like Johnny O shit, and I'm here for it.
Would Johnny O do that?
Back in the day, I feel like that's that. Yeah, all those guys back then were just like, it was all about like, because there was no Instagram. You weren't like posting your setups, right? It was like you just show up to the track with like whatever wild setup, and other people are like, oh shit, I got to run, and then I got to run that. And then next thing you know, you got all these people running 42 front rings that can't make it work, you know? And then they're more like, wow, like he really is a superhero, you know, or whoever.
Yeah,
so it's
really
pretty
fucking with your head.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's been fun to see what Keegan's done, you know, in this domestic scene in the last few years. And now he's just like established himself as like on a completely different planet, and like what that has done for like the course of everyone else, you know, the rest of us. It's completely changed the tide. It's been cool to see.
Before we go on, it does say that you have another browser tab open with Riverside, which we're recording in, and it's telling me, could you close that? I don't know why.
Maybe that.
Maybe it
was when we chatted a bit earlier.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we're good though. But
we had a little secret chat.
Back on that, what you were saying, it's funny because I have a pretty good friend that is like in this beginner cyclist, better sometimes cyclist. His name's Ryan, and he is just blown away by what Keegan does. And he'll literally blow me up with text messages. Did you just see how Keegan did that? How is this guy a superhuman? How is he skinny? How is he all these different things and still able to do these rides and win? And it's kind of amazing, but it's also really cool to see him capturing people that I would say this guy's not fully like in the industry. He doesn't work in cycling, he rides, but he doesn't really. But this is bringing people like him in. I think that's kind of great.
He's like your average basketball player, you know, like thinking about Steph Curry or something. You know, like, he's like, it's like
he owns a ball, and you're like, hey, why this guy's dunking on people, and you're like, whoa, you know what I mean? And
Keegan is dunking on fools. That's what he's been doing lately. Yeah,
so gnarly.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see, man. Because I mean, you know, back around the time when I first met Spencer was around the time when I first met Keegan, because he was on Whole Athlete back then, and was doing really good back then too on Specialized. And, you know, as like a junior rider, and super strong back then. And it's just been cool to see, like, you know, he went all the way to the World Cups, and it just goes to show that, like, as cool as World Cups are, like, they're not everything. And there's all different, like, everybody kind of in cycling at the high level has their own strengths and weaknesses. And like, you know, he didn't do fantastic at the World Cup level. It's also really hard just being an American over there. Like, it's just very different. You know, we're starting.
If you can succeed as an American over there, it's like almost double better.
It is.
I don't know how to.
And it's starting to happen. We're starting to get some crazy fast Americans right now. That's really cool to see. I mean, you guys saw it at the Olympics, and we're seeing it at World Champs and stuff right now. But anyway, you know, and then he kind of put together this new program, and with Tobin and with Santa Cruz and all that. And it was just really cool to see them take a chance and kind of put this together. And I don't think anyone knew what to expect, but nobody expected what we got.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the whole program from start to finish is pretty sick. Just how they organized it, kind of like a world tour team almost, where Tobin and the other guys are working. Yeah, and they're working for
each other.
And and they're not just sticking to one. I mean, they all came from mountain bikes and gravel. There's still some technical aspects to it, but they've found their niche. And like you were saying, Keegan was so fast, but struggled at the World Cups and kind of tapered off, went away from the short distance stuff, and found what his 5 and
6 hour plus power is just absolutely
he's an endurance
insane. Insane. Exactly. That's exactly it. And like short track and XCO wasn't really his thing. I mean, he'd still tear the legs off of, 99.9% of anybody doing it, but it's like,
for sure,
it just wasn't what he was put on this earth to do. Right. And like now he's found what he's put on this earth to do. And it's like, really, like to your point of your buddy, like, anybody who catches wind of it, it's impressive. Like, I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Speaking of the lifetime stuff, I'm sure everyone in here, it seems like an interesting series, right? It's like a little bit mountain bike, a little bit gravel, and you have some roadies jumping to try to do it, right? What is your guys' all thoughts on that? I have my opinions on it. It's kind of, I don't know if like this is kind of tough for me to say, but like, how does a young guy win that? You know what I mean? Because it's almost, you need this insanely big base, right?
Like, quote unquote old man strength, I think, starts to come into play. I mean, Keegan just turned 30, I think, and a lot of the guys are that age or older. I mean, I think it's actually impressive to see some of the younger guys that are really fast. Like Braden Lang's a fast kid who's out there doing. There's a bunch of them, but I think it favors not just physiologically, like being a little bit more mature, but also like from a strategy perspective, because a longer race has more opportunities for things to go sideways. So, and your equipment, is being more put to the test, things like that. So your nutrition, all of that. Like if you're a puzzler, which I think really is what I think, people talk about puzzling in downhill and stuff all the time. And that's kind of where the term I feel like originated. It's gotten a little tired there. Cause I mean, it makes sense, but it's 2-minute runs or whatever.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do. You're pretty much just full gas and hope for the best, right? Like whoever makes the least mistakes or has the best luck is going to win, right? Roughly. And that's why you see so much.
Well, you need your chain for lifetime. You can win on downhill without a chain.
Exactly. So like, that's why you see different winners like all the time in downhill, but in endurance stuff like this, like again, hate to just keep saying Keegan over and over again, but he's just that prolific, right? Like it's not a coincidence that he's winning it over and over again because he's got the nutrition figured out. He's got the equipment figured out. He's got, the pacing.
He's done this for so many years, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a good point. Like, but that's what makes it cool is like each one of the events is different. Some are just pure endurance and some factor in a little bit of tech, some factor in a little bit more tech. Like, so I think it's, there's all different, flat bars, drop bars, and then blending that line, everyone running, not everyone, but fast people running drop bars at Leadville and things like that. So you're seeing these weird hybrid setups, with like droppers on drop posts on drop bars and high posts on flat bars. And it's just kind of like every race is a totally different setup and it's still anyone's guess what's really the best. And I think that's part of what makes it so cool.
Suspension on gravel bikes too.
Yeah. Finally catching on.
That's been a thing for a while now, I guess, but now it's really catching fire. But Austin, to your question, I guess, if you look at any World Tour road race, there's an award for the best young rider. And that's under the age of 25, which in most like pro sports, if you look at football or basketball or whatever, when you're over 25, you're starting to be considered what's old. Moto even, it's an older person. And I think that award wouldn't be around if it weren't for just the physiological advantages that you have gained over time for doing Tour de France. And now, I mean, it's with Taddy, it's changing and there's young riders at the front, but for the longest time, the young riders been there. There's been a few maybe that have been in the mix, but never were winning like they are now.
They're probably going to need that in lifetime then.
I wonder too, at the tour level, it's like, cause it's such a team sport and you've got like, not just your team that's with you out there, your squad, right? But then you've got like all your team squad behind the scenes and, there's so much strategy that gets imparted, kind of through osmosis that way that you wonder like, how much of it like versus like coming to Lifetime is you're mostly on your own, which is another reason why I think it's so cool for Lifetime series is like, it's everyone's kind of on their own. I mean, like Tobin can give, Keegan some advantages and there's other situations.
At certain races, right?
Yeah. Like a little bit here and there. Love you, Tobin, nothing against you, but Keegan's a special dude, right? It's a little different.
I think he would agree.
I know he would. And that's taking nothing away from him. It's just, again, a testament to like the different planet that Keegan lives on these days. It's so cool because everyone can kind of show up. There's dark horses and, people like Lachlan, not to say people wouldn't expect him to win a big race. I think that was a bit overdue in a way, but at the same time, like, on that given day, like what did Keegan come in? Like 12th or something? I forget, like, just a little bit of bad luck and some stuff happened and totally things.
No one was expecting Unbound to go the way it did.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think exciting. That does, because it was getting kind of boring. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Keegan was just blowing records out of the water.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, well, this is kind of getting boring. And then, oh, wow, now we're going to have it where people are going to fight back almost. You know, it gives you hope.
Yeah.
I guess.
Totally.
But then he goes out and does what he does at Leadville, gets a flat tire, and then just, I don't know. Guy's wild.
Yep. And like I said, I mean, he shows up to Downieville these last few years and proves to everyone that, like, he's not just a 7-hour, 6-hour endurance, gravel road guy. He can ride. Spencer knows he's raced Downieville at least once or twice. Yeah. It's not an EWS thing. It's not like that, but it's pretty unique and it
still has stuff on it that's pretty gnarly.
It's rough. It's super rough.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't even say that it's that gnarly, but it's so impressive the speed he can go on the setup he's on.
Yeah,
they are on like the whatever
no dropper post
hard tires, Aspens.
Aspens, yeah, exactly. And going
mock
really fast.
Mock chicken. Yeah, especially like his line through the waterfall on that setup. Like,
are you talking on like that right side that he goes?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it the video they posted?
He takes like the very pro line that, like, but to Spencer's point, on a setup that's like, I'd be 100% over the bars, because I don't even think he runs a dropper. I feel like he wasn't even running a dropper. Maybe
it's weight, man. It's just weight. I don't know.
Crazy.
I don't think he was. I'm pretty. I don't know. I should go back and look. I'll stalk it up right now. Where you guys are keep going where you're at.
He must
though.
have had a dropper, but I know he high posts a lot of the time. Like Sea Otter, he high posted. Leadville, he high posted. I must have had a dropper at Downieville.
You have to. I mean,
you don't have to, but I feel like to go as fast as he must have. But nonetheless, like crazy low front end, crazy narrow bars, pin or tires.
He had
nuts.
a dropper.
He did have a dropper.
It's nuts.
Yep.
He didn't have a dropper at Leadville. Do you need a dropper at Leadville?
Leadville, I mean, obviously you don't need it. He proved that. But that's another one of those things where I would argue that a dropper probably is faster. But for his calculus, it's like, I don't need it, and I can still win without it. And it's a bigger FU to everyone else that I just dropped you on a straight post, high posting.
Drop bars as well.
Drop bars, high posting.
And if you look at it from his strengths and stuff, if he can build a big enough lead on the climb where it matters where you're gaining or losing the most time. I mean, you can manage the way on the downhill. And if you've ridden Leadville, the Columbine descent, like, is the big climb and the big descent. I mean, there's a few, but that thing, as long as you're in the main line, nobody's really passing you, or you're not really passing anybody. So it's, you kind of just get in line. And I mean, he is the front of the line at that point. So I don't think he was.
I mean, I feel like you can pass a lot easier on an uphill than a downhill, right? If you're in a battle.
Like, most likely, but I mean, on some of these fire roads and stuff, I think like you could pass. But I think to Spencer's point, like, it's maybe a little bit one line, even though it's a fire road. It's like there's a smooth line and a rough line, and you risk a puncture.
Take some moto instincts, right, and start cutting people off. Like, that's what I would do. I'd be like,
you can't.
You can't.
I mean,
is it against the rules? Or?
No. It's not against the rules, but it's hard. Keegan is at the front of the line, per se, when he starts coming down that thing. When he goes up, he's the only one, or with 5 other people, and you turn around and come straight back down the road you just climbed. So,
okay, so it's not like a chance for anyone.
He's passing 1,000 people going up the left side of that road, or trying to find that smooth line, and he's in the smooth line on the descent on the other side of the road, or wiggling through people, and it's there's not a ton of room, especially at the top, to pass. But
that makes a little more sense.
And if you go off that smooth line, right, like that's when you're running like a sketchy tire setup for speed, and that's where like your little 170 TPI semi slick is just shattered, right? So like I tried taking a line like that at Lost and Found, because they have this situation where like towards the end of the race, like the 100-mile people start ending up on course with like the 60 and 30-mile people on this really chunky fire road descent. There's really only one good line, and it's a timed descent. And I tried to go around somebody like off on a crap line and just absolutely smoked my rear tire. It was like 15 minutes of like shoving plugs in there and like doing all kinds of stuff. So it's like, I think to Spencer's point, like it's when you're trying to strategize
really
for a 6-hour race or something, you're not going to take those kinds of risks for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a long game. Yeah,
exactly.
So I was stalking your Instagram pretty deep. You're a cross guy, huh?
Used to be.
Okay.
I will tell you this year.
I don't care to ever ride it, but holy shit, it's awesome to fucking watch.
Right on.
You guys battle like motocross and take each other out, and it is fucking amazing. Like, I'm down to watch that.
It's really fun. When I was fast at it, relatively fast, like I found myself having some really fun battles. I think like fast cross racers, experienced cross racers, like know how to, keep their elbows up and make contact. And like, there's like a bit of a code of ethics amongst, racers about like what's kind of the limit and what isn't. And it does get to be rather motocrossy. And there's a lot of contact. Super
I had
fun.
No idea that it was
super fun
the way it was. So I did the TV broadcast for USA Cycling this year at the National Champs. And, as I'm watching it, there was multiple times where dudes total moto moves, cut the inside and just plow the guy down. And I was like, this is awesome. This is what I want to kind of see a little bit at cross country,
That's, man, at the Olympics this year, right? Like everyone was so freaked out, and I was like, what? Like that like wasn't even a thing. Like, I'm sorry, but you leave the door wide open, you're asking for it, Yes. So
at the Olympics.
And Pitcock came from cross. That was absolutely where he first achieved, big success. He was a Specialized guy for Specialized UK.
Was he really?
Yeah, when I was there, when he was a younger rider. And he came up through the UK through Specialized. And so I was aware of him like, long time ago. And yeah, he's absolutely a cross racer. And you can see that there in that, in my opinion,
so when he landed at XC, you knew, you were like, this guy's going to be gnarly.
He's gnarly. Yeah, for sure.
Like no joke. Yeah. He was 2 minutes down and came back.
I don't know how far back he was.
Maybe it was 40 seconds. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, whatever it was mechanical, right? Like, and he lost time, and he clearly was.
It was gnarly.
The superior rider of anyone. So
I mean, it was just a sick pass, straight
up. Sick pass.
That makes for good racing, and I
was like they never seen a moto race in their life. That was like gentle right there.
Mm-hmm. I think it was very gentle. There was essentially no contact.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want it done to me at the Olympics on the last lap, but
don't leave the door open.
Don't leave the door open. You're totally right. Maybe you shouldn't have ran a 40 on the front. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Hey, at least his chain stayed on this time, right?
True. Yeah. True.
Yeah.
So where did Sean Estes get into the whole mountain bike world? How did it all begin?
Yes. How did it all begin? So I'll give you the origin story. Yeah. So, my dad was in the Army, so we moved around a bunch. When I was little, we lived out here. Actually, we were stationed at Fort Ord, like right next to Laguna Seca, like where the Sea Otter Fuego is, like right off the side of the course there, basically. But then we moved to the East Coast. And I got that's when I started like learning how to ride a bike, and had like a BMX bike, and we had these woods outside of our backyard, and like myself and the neighborhood kids would like ride our BMX bikes in the woods, and the like older kids would ride motos and stuff, and we thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. But then we moved back to California when I was 9, and I was like ready to get a new bike, and I was like, what are these bikes I see these other kids on, that like had gears and bigger tires and stuff. And it's like, that's when I found out. We moved to Morgan Hill, of all places, just randomly. So we're Specialized. Yeah, we're Specialized. We had some family in the area, so we moved there. And happened to be like essentially, one of the epicenters of mountain biking at that point in time. Because this was like, I'm aging myself, but like this was the late 80s. So mountain biking was blowing up, and like Morgan Hill was probably like the place to be. So I moved there, and quickly got into mountain biking, and then it was just a hobby for long time, and then my first job I worked in some shops and stuff like that. I worked at a shop in Santa Barbara called VeloPro for a long time, and after that I worked in a little studio. I was like in school in Santa Barbara, like studying like cinematography and that sort of thing, and then I ended up kind of working on that side of things, like as like we had like a little design studio, and we were doing a bunch of stuff for like some industry companies. Like we worked for Fox Head, we worked with Maxis, a bunch of stuff back in the day. It was called Crux Studio in Santa Cruz. And then that kind of led me to basically what happened was like, I think you guys both know Rob Salcido.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another guy who you guys may or may not have ever crossed paths with, but one of my best friends was a guy named Carlin Dunn. And he's a pro mountain biker for a couple years, but mostly a moto guy for his career, did kind of all kinds of different stuff on moto. So Carlin and I met in Santa Barbara right as he was getting into mountain biking. We were both taking film classes together, and we started working on some projects together. This is like in the year 2000. And we became like super good buds right away. So Carlin was riding for Giro, which was, Giro and Bell, same company. And they were looking for someone for sports marketing, and they had talked to Rob and they had talked to Carlin, and neither of them knew each other, but both of them said, you should talk to this guy. So, Giro gave me a shot. It was Bell and Giro. They brought me in doing sports marketing. It was fun because they were actually rebuilding their moto program, because they'd had such a kind of illustrious program. And then, they'd like licensed off the name to this other company, and they lost it for a number of years, and then they got the license. They got it all back, and it was all back in house, and they wanted to kind of rebuild. And so they invested in that. They brought me in, and 2006, I came in and, got a chance to basically rebuild their moto program, but also to take over for mountain bike as well, for Giro and Bell. And we had Easton at the time too, which were doing mountain bike components back then, and they were quite at the forefront in terms of like carbon and stuff like that. So I had all those brands for both sides of things, but my main focus in terms of like traveling and all that was moto. So yeah, just built a whole amateur and pro program. Within a few years, we got a bunch of teams. We got Yamaha Troy back. I worked with J-Law a bunch back then. It was super fun. Signed James Stewart in like 2009. That was fun.
So you were there that long? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was confused on your time when you went over to Specialized. Then.
Yeah. I went to Specialized in spring of 2011. So I was at Bell and Giro and Easton for about 5 years, just shy. And then, I went to Specialized in spring of 2011 to do sports marketing there as well at the time. And that's like, it's like when I mentioned like getting to know like Keegan, and like Kate Courtney was on the program at that time, like Todd Wells and Leah Davison. It was a really good program. I was doing like their US sports marketing. Did that for I was only in sports marketing there for like a year or so. And then there was just sort of an opportunity to move over onto the global marketing team and do PR, which was compelling to me because there was a few folks working on the PR team at that time who I'd known for a while and had a lot of respect for and thought they were great. And I saw kind of like the similarities between sports marketing and PR in the sense that like on one hand, you're kind of using like athletes to put your products in front of an audience. And on the other hand, you're kind of going through editors to do the same thing. So it's not that different. And that's kind of when I met Spencer. Cause then I started working with like, Mountain Bike Action and all those different, magazines and stuff. So, and I already kind of knew a lot of those people, from being in the industry. And then I think what was really fun about that was the timing was just right. Cause there'd been a couple guys that specialized over the years prior. There was a guy named Nick Sims, a super good guy who kind of like was one of the first people there to really start, realizing the connection between motocross and even like, road racers too, like in using bicycles for training. And then, Kevin Franks did a bunch of work with those guys too in his days back there. But when I came in 2011, even when I was still in USA, Spencer, you were probably there for the first one. We did the A1 ride days in 2012, January 2012, like whatever first weekend of January, A1 weekend. In 2012 was the first time we did that. It was kind of like this idea of like, I saw the connection between the two industries, but I'm like, Specialized was a brand that was really uniquely positioned to like do something with that. I thought. And so it's like, let's like, so Sam Benedict and I loaded up a Sprinter van full of like all kinds of Robert Eggers cool, like, moto, like he was making like weird moto mountain bike hybrid moped things before, before Surons were like a thing. Right. And so we loaded up a bunch of like cool bikes and weird, like cool Robert, like concept bikes. And Robert's really big into moto. He worked with Will and Tommy Hahn and stuff because his wife, Sandra, was like at Fox. And then she was also training those guys. And so like, there's so much connection, but we really took it like in 2011 is when we really like, we're like, okay, let's like do something with this and like really try. And that was really fun. And I feel like it's really cool to me to see like all these years later that A1 ride still turns out like 300, 400 people come out and it still goes strong. And I think like even these days with all the like OEMs having their own e-bikes and stuff now, Specialized still just has such a name in that space. It's just really cool to see.
Yeah. So you know exactly why Specialized still has that power in the moto world. And honestly, a lot of the some of the other bike brands kind of try too, but the OEM bikes just at least at this point are
some of them are okay. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, better. That's what I loved about Specialized and I still love about Specialized is that they make good bikes. They make good stuff too. I mean, got good equipment and all that, but like, they really really, really, really like put a lot into making what I think are some of the, best bikes consistently out there, no matter what kind of bike it is,
Yeah. Those early A1 rides, I mean, I was so new to everything, but it was a lot of fun. It was
super fun,
super cool. I remember Cannondale did a ride like during Anaheim one, just like from the stadium to the beach a couple times. And then, we did the mountain bike ride.
That was like show air Cannondale days, huh?
Yep, exactly. And
Jordy was working for them back then.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, because Jordy was my mechanic at Specialized on our USA program, and that's where we got to know each other. And he's awesome. And then he went with Plaxton. He went with Max Plaxton over to show air Cannondale for a couple of years and was doing that before he went to Fox, and is kind of now, obviously made such a name for himself with Dialed and everything. Yeah,
it's epic. And then we lost the road bike ride, the A1 roadie ride.
Yeah,
but that
was a road
fun.
ride.
We used to do a road ride, but honestly, we kind of like almost killed it because it was a matter of time until someone died, because it was
dangerous.
It was so,
that many people, and
all these riders would come out, because we do it the day after, right? Like on Sunday, so everyone could come out. But like you get all these super competitive, Villopoto would come out, and all the Hayden brothers would come out.
Yeah.
And everybody just was like gunning it, and it's like, it's one thing to go ride your road bike around, but when you're with a group of like 100 or 200 people and you're riding down the PCH on a Sunday, it was just a matter of time, dude.
Yeah.
So we had to just squash it. But it makes sense on the mountain bike, with leading out of Rock and Road and straight into Aliso there. And you can, it's all good to go and safe, and you can have a bajillion people come, and it's pretty cool.
I didn't know that it was a road ride at one moment. I thought it was always just a mountain ride.
We had both.
Okay. Oh, you had both.
So First year we just did mountain. And then, there was this shop called Surf City Cyclery that has since become Specialized Costa Mesa. And they were really into it, and they understood the connection, and so they were like, hey, can we do a road ride? And I think for year 2, there was a guy, Mike Fiello, that was there back in the day, super good guy. And he ran the Surf City. They had a team, like a crit team with a bunch of strong guys. And so they were like, let's do a road ride too. And so we did it. And what was nice about it was the mountain ride. Like we could sometimes get more people to come out on the Sunday for the road ride, because it was like, A1's over, the pressure's off a little bit, just come out and spin around on the road bike was the idea. Of course, it ended up getting full throttle,
right.
But
Because on the mountain, it was Friday.
I think we do it on Friday morning.
The first couple.
Yeah. But now it's just Sunday, though, for that one, right?
Just Sunday, because that was kind of a better time to do it anyway. But once you got the road ride out of the equation, it was freed up.
Of course, if someone would have broke themselves off on that Friday one, if they even had Villopoto, like that would have been.
I was thinking just like car pulls out or something, like just something. It was really fun while it lasted, but
Dude, even on the mountain bike, like going now, you still ride with those guys with the Sextons and Jet and Hunter and all them, and Forkner, and they're hauling ass. They're not. No, they're going fast uphill and downhill. They want to be.
Smart ones bring the e-bikes though.
Turns out they can ride,
but still, and they want to. They don't want to be shown up by other people. Like they got, and rightfully so. Their egos that they got to rip. And it's fun.
They're racers, fun, man. Racers gonna race.
Yeah.
And so I gotta get down there. I haven't been down in a few years. I think the last time I went was like 2019 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Because for a certain moment, it started going out of Shimano right, and then it switched over.
Shimano was doing like their own ride for like A2.
Okay.
And because Joe has a lot going on with those guys too, with moto guys and stuff. I don't know. I don't remember the exact history, but for a while they were doing their own ride, and we would always coordinate to make sure we weren't like stepping on each other's toes and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Because the first one I ever went to, I believe, went out of Shimano, and then I just started going to the Rock and Road one.
Yeah.
They went out, but
Yep.
So then you basically seen the beginning of e-bikes at Specialized.
Oh yeah, I was there for the launch of the first. First of all, the first just turbo like e-bike, commuter bike, city bike, right? But then was in Leo Gang for the launch of the first,
like for the one that now we all adore, right?
Yeah,
I would say. How was that? Like,
well, I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm, I like to pedal. I like to race. And so I went over there going like, I gotta go launch this e-bike, and I gotta like pretend it's cool, And I was kind of a hater. But I didn't really know, right? I hadn't really ridden them, and but you gotta support the team. So we went over there a few days early, like we normally would do, and spent some time riding for a few days and scouting out all the trails and figuring out exactly what the plans were going to be, firming up the plan and stuff. And I was just like, I was so blown away by the bike. Like, I was like, this is like, I went from like super skeptical to like, this is the best thing ever. It was just incredible. I couldn't believe, like, I just couldn't believe, because those original ones, right? They had the 27.5 by like 2.8 purgatory
Dude, those tires were deadly though.
I know that they would blow up unless you were running pretty high pressures, but like in between the times when they would blow up and carcass, like everything in between was so good.
Oh, you had traction.
Like you had so much traction, and like you had all that weight down in the bottom bracket area, you know, with the motor and everything. And I just remember riding some rough stuff and just being like, it felt like you were riding a 450 that had stalled, and you were just like, you know, just coasting, right? Like it just stuck to the ground. And I couldn't believe how planted it was. And then, you know, of course you could just fly up hills. So I spent like, you know, 10 days over there, running through like 2 groups of editors and stuff from all over the world, riding and just having a good old time and just smoking batteries, and came straight home and went up to Downieville and went camping. And I got on my analog stump jumper, which was like the same bike equivalent. Right. And I was pedaling up the pavement just to even get to the trail up at like Packer Saddle. And I was just like convinced that my bike was broken because it was so hard, so hard. I was like, this thing is just, something is wrong. My bottom bracket seized up or something. So I literally took my like hub apart. I took my bottom bracket apart.
Oh, wow.
I was on the side of the road, took everything apart because I was like, no, this isn't like just the fact that I'm at like 7,000 feet and I just came from like sea level, and like I was on an e-bike and now I'm on an analog bike. I was like, no, it's broken. Took it all apart. It was not broken. It was just the e-bike just ruined me and turned me into like, I couldn't go back, but I did eventually go back, obviously, because I don't really ride bikes that much, but they're so rad.
Yeah. So was that the moment at Downieville when you were like, this shit's going to change the world? Or
yeah, I mean, in Leo Gang, it was honestly that epiphany. It was like, yeah, I mean, it was, I kind of like right then and there, I kind of started saying like the E and e-bike, it's really just stands for like equalizer. Cause like, you know, people, it's electric, and yeah, sure it is electric, but like it's an equalizer because it allows everybody to have the experience, you know?
Yep.
And one of the first things that kind of occurred to me in the early days, because I'm not going to lie, like being the PR guy for the company that was bringing these things to North America, you know, I had a target on my back, and I remember being at like Sea Otter one year, and Pink Bike came by and wanted to like do a little video interview, and, you know, they went to every booth, right? And they're like, yes or no e-bikes, right? Like, give us your hot take or whatever before hot takes were a thing. And I was just like, it's the future. It's, you know, it's like it or don't, like, here's all the reasons why it's good. And a lot of the vitriol was about, oh, it's a dirt bike, it's a motorbike. Like, and it's just like, no, dude, it's not. Like, if you look at it, those class 1 e-bikes there's restrictions around like how much peak power and like, you know, all these different things. And all those restrictions are intentionally put in place based on like what humans are capable of. So basically all an e-bike does is allow any one of us or anyone to be Tom Pidcock in terms of our like FTP. So I crunched a bunch of numbers early days and looked at it and was like, okay, yeah, like a class 1 e-bike with like, you know, however many 750 watts or whatever it is, like peak power, you know, that weighs 50 pounds with a rider that probably weighs just say 180, 190 pounds, versus like a 20-pound XC bike with a rider that weighs 145 pounds and, you know, and can make this much power, like it all equals out. So like, it just, the argument that like they don't belong on mountain bike trails, immediately my answer to that was bullshit, because they can't do anything that a really fit human can't already do. And they can only climb, you know, so now instead of climbing at 3 miles an hour, you're climbing at 6 miles an hour, like big deal. And then on the downhills, they're not doing anything because it's, you know, you've overridden the speed governor. So it was, pretty apparent to me that these things they are mountain bikes. And I know I'm still going to get hate for this. Like, they're not exactly mountain bikes, but they basically are. Yeah, we can get into the nuance of like, you can do more laps and that's more erosion and blah, blah, blah. And there's all kinds of other things, but
you're nitpicking at that moment.
Yeah. And ultimately the thing that I always come back to is like it or don't, you know, that's a personal stance. But at the end of the day, they've allowed that many more people to get on bikes and get into what we're doing, which is more collective voice to speak for advocacy, to get access to trails, to preserve access to trails, to get new infrastructure built. Because having been around, you know, Spencer, you've seen it too, like been around the world and ridden everywhere. Like, I look forward to a day when in the US we can have like trail networks like we have in New Zealand and other places where there's directional trails and everything's clearly marked. And like, oh, the equestrians have this entire area over here, because then you minimize conflicts. Like in the US, we're scrapping for like access. So we end up like they put like hikers, horseback riders, people, mountain bikers, e-bikers, everybody on the same trail, and they go figure it out. And it's like, that's a recipe for disaster,
Yeah.
So we need to do better. And I think that e-bikes have presented some challenges in the short term, but in the long term, they are going to be the thing that makes mountain biking legitimate in the mainstream.
Then I have two things for that. Do you wonder, like and I'm still more fresh into this, the pandemic was insane for how many people got e-bikes, right?
Yes.
And it got cycling, I feel like made it a huge jump in growth.
Yeah.
Would it have done that without e-bikes around? That much of a jump at
There
that time?
was a big jump in analog bikes too during that time, but like bikes in general were just hot. But that was really where we did start to see the trends in the US start matching up more closely to the trends that had already been happening in Europe for like 5 years, where like e-bikes were outselling analog bikes. And so that's what it took to make it happen here. But I think it was going to happen either way. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Europe was, like you're just saying, was 5 years ahead with e-bikes in general. High bike was crushing it, and they were everywhere, and they were allowed everywhere, which was a big thing.
Yeah.
And I think to your point earlier, you're not alone with the experience you've had when you first got on e-bikes. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, e-bikes suck. They're tearing up the trails, whatever. I want to ride an analog bike. I want to earn your turn." And then you put someone on it, and it kind of changes. They get that like e-bike smile that, you and
Riding
I
is
both
believing.
ride exactly, and you
you
and
know,
I both
like,
ride. All of us ride analog bikes all the time. But we also enjoy the living hell out of the e-bikes.
Well, and so that brings up a cool point too. And kind of going back to the moto thing, was I remember talking to Alden years ago when he was still working with Specialized, and being like, "Hey man, like we need to get all these guys on e-mountain bikes again, because the equalizer piece, like you got, say you're working with 4 athletes, and some of them are really into bikes and pedaling, and some of them aren't that into it. Now you can all go out and adjust the power output to equalize everything, so you can all ride together.
And you keep the ride together. Yeah,
exactly. Keep the ride together. Or it's like, it's a recovery day, but you don't just want to go out and spin your road bike around on flat pavement and maybe take the risk of getting hit by a car or whatever. You want to work on keep your handling skills fresh and all that, but you still want to spin, go ride the e-bike, so I think for elite athletes, e-bikes have a really cool place as like one more tool in their arsenal for like active recovery, keeping your skills sharp, being able to like tune up and down, like, you're getting over a cold or something, but you still want to move your body a little bit, turn it up. So they can kind of be whatever you want them to be. But even when you're running them full turbo, it's like, who cares? I'm tired of all the snobbiness around it. I think the bigger issue is all the new people that got into it and got e-bikes during the pandemic weren't really, they're not given any like etiquette courses. They're new to the whole thing. They don't know what to do. They got the Bluetooth speaker and, like they're just blowing by people without calling out, on your left and stuff. So it's really more about the etiquette that a lot of people are new to the sport that are doing.
And just because they're on an e-bike,
itself.
that's it's like, it's an e-biker, right? Yeah.
So
you can pick that up for the guy who has he had a red shirt on. The red shirt guys are the ones that are cut.
Guys, they're the worst, man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I had gotten an analog mountain bike, was okay. I liked riding it, had fun. Got an e-bike, and that's when I fell in love. Mm-hmm. And now I barely even want to ride the e-bike except for work. I just want to do analog because it's amazing. I mean,
it's pure.
I love the ability to just flick it around and different things like that. So it got me in, I feel like, more than an analog would have, right?
Yeah, it's much easier barrier to entry. Like I remember way back in the day, I was like 20 or something, and I had this girlfriend, and I was like, she'd probably love mountain biking. It's so fun, right? You're outdoors and having a good time. And I bought her this like little hardtail, at the time it was like all I could afford to get was like some Haro, like hardtail from the local shop in Morgan Hill. And we went out and did this little ride where you seriously had to climb this like fire road for like a couple 100 yards to get to the top of this little spot where there were some trails. And she was like, I'm going to die. This is the worst thing. I hate this. Like, and I realized, I was like, God, I'm such an idiot. Like, but once you're like a elite, athlete or whatever, like, or an enthusiast, you kind of forget in the barrier to entry to mountain biking. It's so physically challenging, but like to your point, an e-bike can totally be that equalizer that or enabler that lets you get into it. And then you can, from there, maybe branch out. Yeah. Maybe then you get a road bike, or maybe you get an XC bike. And the other thing I was going to say though, is it's not like it used to be. And like Spencer, I know, like Epic Evo and even like the new regular Epic, those bikes are so light and pedal so well and are so capable for climbing, but then they can also just do practically anything. Like they're as good as, you know, enduro bikes were a decade ago. So it's kind of like, it's a good time to ride analog bikes right now, because you can have a 23-pound bike that's like capable of basically everything, which is freaky.
I'm with you on that. My Enduro has literally been in the bike bag since Crankworx, not this year, but 2 years ago.
And that's kind of what we're seeing is like e-bikes, any bike over like 150 travel, that is all e-bikes now, pretty much. Yeah. In like the downcountry bikes and like the big XC bikes are like what's selling in the analog bikes now.
I fully agree with that. Like, I don't know why I'd want to climb a 170 when I can kind of get away with my Epic Evo. Yeah. I might be butt puckering on a few moments and holy shits, but
that's fun too, though.
I'm kind of okay with doing that.
Yes.
That's part of the fun, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, Spencer, you're a fucking freak. Okay. Let's get real.
Yeah. But it's a little bit, you get into that underbiking thing. And I think that's just a trend that I'm all about, because like for so many years, I think that the trends were leaning towards like more travel than people needed and more, you know, slacker geos and everything, like, you know, pendulum swings like they do. Right. It went all the way to one end and, you know, 800 plus bars and, you know, like the grim donut, you know, geometry and all that stuff. And I think we finally found our way back, and like people are running like, you know, 760 bars now, like maybe on average. And like, if you look at actually like pro EDR racers, like they're all running like 760-ish bars. Some are running 740s, some are running 780s, but nobody's running 800s.
Hearing that data makes me feel a lot better though. Yeah. I'm a 760 guy, and I thought I was weird.
No, dude, it's if you look at EDR racing, which is like, I would argue like the tip of the, you know, the pointy end of the spear, like they're all running pretty small bars, and some of them are running, like Jesse Melliman, I think runs 740s, pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, he's a smaller dude, but he's absolute savage, you know? So, 740s,
get off this
760s.
Podcast and go cut my bars.
There you go. Take it just a little more off. But anyway, I think like we went past the tipping point. Like nobody needed to be on 160, 170 bikes, like for just cruising around on the weekends and stuff like that. So it's cool to see like the pendulum swinging back to a place where like, I don't know, like new stump jumper, right? It's like a little bit shorter travel than the previous one, but because of, like, I've always thought geo is more important than travel, geo and kinematics. And now it's like the industry is really reflecting that. And you can get these like 130, 140 bikes, 120 bikes that all just like absolutely rip. Really fun stuff. And it makes you a better rider, because like you can't just plow through everything. And I think to your point, Austin, you can climb better. So then it's like kind of makes you more inclined to get out and go ride, because it's not so painful.
Agreed. Yeah. Very much agreed with that.
Nothing sucks more than just lugging a big heavy bike up some climb to not even need all that suspension.
Yeah. Kenny Sloggins.
Literally. So now fast forward, Sean, you're at Fox, found a new home. You've been there for 4 years, is that what you said?
5 plus.
5 years, 5 plus. Yeah. Doing marketing stuff, and you guys just came out with a dropper post.
We did come out with the new wireless dropper,
electric dropper post.
It's a new, it's a new product for you guys.
It's based on our new cable dropper that we came out with earlier this year too. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that seemed to be making some noise. How did everything go on that end for you guys, for the marketing guy?
It was great. It went really well. And by no means, you know, I'm a marketing guy, but we've got not huge, but we have a very good team. When I came on 5-ish years ago, we didn't have a very big team, but we've grown. And that's kind of a good segue, because that was what compelled me to make the move. I mean, I still love Specialized and everything. I'm still very close with everybody there, and, you know, feel very tight connected to that brand. But ultimately the opportunity at Fox was a good one. And you know, I'd done sports marketing, I'd done PR, and I wanted to kind of learn the rest of marketing. And there was a brand manager position for Fox open, and that was compelling to me. And so in the time that's, you know, we built a team. We just kind of, at the time I joined, completed the merger with like Raceface and Easton and Fox, and we just acquired Marzocchi. So it was kind of like there was a lot of exciting stuff happening and a lot of opportunity, and getting in at that level when things were pretty new in that sense. And kind of as they were rebuilding the org and the way that we were working was a fun opportunity. And here we are 5 years later. And so like when I first started, one of the very first projects I worked on was like we launched the 38 fork back then. And we launched like a new 36 and a new 40 and a bunch of new stuff at the same time. And I came up with like that that heritage collection we did, where we had, like the pistachio 38.
I was thinking you were gonna say that as like the pistachio 40.
Yeah, and like the root beer 36 and the battleship 40. Like that was one of my first projects. And back then, like that whole launch, all that stuff was like basically just myself. I mean, there was a creative guy at the time with the brand named Josh who was awesome, and he and I did basically all that stuff together. But now it's like we have, I don't want to say a huge team because it's nowhere near the size of the team we had to specialize, but we have like the right size team. We've got a fantastic like digital marketing team. We've got like incredible creative team. So we've got a whole team now, so that, you know, by no means any of these launches, like I don't want to ever imply that like, oh, I did that or whatever, because that is not the case. Like it is, there's a bunch of us working on it. But yeah, I was, that being said, heavily involved in that launch, and it's been a super good launch, and it kind of ties into a bigger ecosystem of product that will be more stuff launching very soon as well. It's super exciting.
You can tell us. We're not. No
no
one listens to the podcast.
It's the worst kept secret in the industry anyway. So people have seen some stuff out there already on athletes over the last couple of seasons, and it's been winning a bunch of races. So it's cool. But
without cables.
Like the way I'll put it is like, you know, every company is different and they all have their quirks, and like, you know, just being like totally honest, like SRAM is our biggest competitor, RockShox's our biggest competitor, but I got nothing but love for that company. Like they are a great company. They push innovation super hard. They move fast. They're nimble. And honestly, like being just totally transparent, I'm jealous of that. Like we're a publicly traded company. We're like super, super engineering driven, which is what I love. Like we still very much like all the stuff that Bob Fox was like doing from day one in 1974 to this day is like still how we like produce stuff. We're very like methodical about it. We're not like fast and nimble, but we're typically not first, but we believe that we're usually best. So it's just, there's just different, you know, different ways of getting after it. But yeah, I have tremendous respect for our biggest competitor and the way they do their stuff. But I also, at the same time, I love Fox and the way we do it too. So like this stuff that's coming out, we've been working on this stuff since I started, and that's a coincidence. It's not like I was like, hey, we need to do this, and they're like, oh, you're a genius. It was just like, no, they're already working on this stuff, or it would just happen to be the right time. So, but I don't want to come across like, oh, we're, you know, revolutionizing things, because like, no, I mean, it's a wireless post, and those guys beat us to it by like 3 or 4 years, right? But if you just compare specs and stuff, like we've got a very compelling product that you know is what we believe is the best.
It's,
you know,
it's gold. It'll really match my bikes. I'm fucking in.
Oh, I could spend an hour talking about Kashima if you guys want to do that,
dude. Yes, honestly, like I've actually got into a conversation with Spencer at another suspension brand about asking about Kashima and understanding it. Like
this is great. I'm down.
I would like to actually know. Like, okay, I've been told this, and I don't know if it's true. Kashima versus DLC, I believe, which is just like the black coating or something like that. It's not as strong as Kashima. I'm a little bit confused on this.
So Kashima is a proprietary hard anodizing process. And so, yeah, it does change like the surface of the material a little bit. Like it makes it harder. Yeah. Because that's kind of what anodizing does. It bonds and kind of like impregnates into the outer layer of the aluminum that's going onto. There is black Kashima. You can get that too. Like in moto, if you have your forks Kashima coated, you can choose black or the regular kind of gold color. And of course, depending on what alloy series, you know, 6,000, 7,000, whatever, is going to depend on what color comes out. But the standard black anode that's used on most forks in our non-factory series forks is not, it's like, I forget if it's like type 2 anode versus type 4 anode. I forget, and you know, some engineer will blow me up for getting that wrong, but at the end of the day, one's a hard anode and one isn't. And Kashima's hard, and it also has like PTFE like impregnated into it, which is like you know, I guess like ethanol, like it's like a plastic. It's a type of plastic essentially. So it makes it more lubricious or whatever, gives it greater smoothness. So being hard anode, it's more resistant to scratches and things like that, but it's also smoother. And then the PTFE makes it also lower friction. So for all of the comments you see and stuff about Kashima being, you know, marketing nonsense, absolutely not true. To be fully transparent, what it is is a marginal gain like anything else. And everything on our bikes is marginal gains. You know, like SRAM comes out with a new chain that's like 1% less friction or whatever. That's great. I'll take it. I'll take 1%. Any athlete will take 1 or 2% or 3% any given day. Now with Kashima, we know that like in terms of just direct friction, it's more than 1 or 2% smoother than comparable like black ano. But in terms of how do you translate that into like, what does that mean for an athlete when they're riding? Like how much of a percent advantage is it? Almost impossible. There's a million ways you could calculate that. But in terms of just, is it better? It's better. Absolutely. Objectively. And, you know, better is better. So even if it's 1% or 2%, which is realistically, it's probably in the realm of like a 1 or 2%, you know, actual real world improvement. If we had to kind of guesstimate, I'll take that every time. Every time.
In what way? In performance and
Friction,
longevity
smoothness.
and
And longevity as well. It does actually, because of the lower friction, it does actually make like seals and wipers and things last longer. That is actually also true. And when it comes to dropper posts, we're still kind of proving this out, but we have a bunch of tests we do where like, you know, you mount the dropper in the lab, right? And it's cycling and it has this little nozzle that's spraying muddy water directly on the wiper. It's still kind of like early to say, and all the engineer guys are like very particular about like, you know, we can't say anything unless it's like fully proven out, but it's something like we're seeing like 3 or 4 times the longevity with Kashima in that particular test versus black ano. So it actually is more durable, but I'm talking like if you're downhill racer, if you're Jackson Goldstone, in a 2.5, 3 minute downhill run, it's probably worth, you know, maybe 1%, you know, or if you're maybe in downhill, maybe it's not 1% because it's so short, but like the average mountain biking racing scenario, it's you know, you could probably safely say it's a 1 to 2%, you know, improvement, at least in terms of friction and whatever that might equate out to in terms of a benefit, depending on what your racing discipline is.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so the conversation that got arised by this or arose is we were talking about e-bikes is before you guys had the 38.
Yeah.
And it was run the black anodized ones instead of the Kashima because it doesn't flex as much. Maybe that was like the conversation. It was stronger for some reason.
Oh, so here's what that's probably like good and well-intentioned, but misinformation. So here's what it comes down to. If you go, so when you're at the factory level on a 36, you're, if it's the non-e-bike version of the 36, the upper tubes are actually thinner for weight savings, right? And they're 7,000 series. That's a factory series and performance elite series, which is so
step down.
Yeah, but factory and performance elite are identical apart from Kashima. That's the only difference. They have the same dampers, the same construction, the same everything. But then when you go down to performance series, things start changing. You get a different damper, but you maintain the same upper tube. But when you go down to rhythm, it goes to a 6,000 series upper tube with thicker wall. And that being said too, though, if you go to our EMTB specific forks, they also go to a thicker upper tube wall.
This was before you guys had that type of stuff.
We were doing that though before 38. So when 38 came out, it just so happened that even with the thinner upper tubes, because of the diameter of them, they were stiff enough that they could meet our requirements we have like 169 kilogram system weight, like sort of like testing requirement for like something to earn like the e-bike approved sort of name.
I've always wondered what the difference is. It makes sense to me. I always thought, you probably need some.
But what your buddy was getting at didn't have to do with Kashima. It just happened to do with the fact that in his mind, he was equating like, oh, the Kashima ones are factory, which means they have thinner tubes, and the black ones mean they have thicker tubes. That's not always the case. We make Kashima with thicker tubes and we make black with thinner tubes. So it really depends on which one you're getting.
Okay.
But what he was getting at is a very strong argument in theory. And it's the reason that I would tell people who are riding bigger travel e-bikes, get a 38 or get a 36 EMTB optimized, because it has the thicker tubes. In the case of the 36, it has a thicker tube. In the case of 38, it doesn't need it because it's already stiff enough. But yes, there's an argument to be made that when you're riding a 50-pound e-bike, if you have those thinner tubes, they can flex more, and that's going to create friction in the chassis because the upper tube is like deflecting against the bushings and everything right on the lower leg.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he's not totally wrong.
He's not. He's basing it on like misinformation or misunderstanding of the information.
He was talking about having the different I don't even know what they call it.
Upper
The crown
stanchions.
Stanchions. Yes.
Yeah.
He said, yes, these stanchions. He had some mixed cocktail that was like, I don't know if I want to taste that, you know?
Yeah. No, he's right though. Like you want that stiffness because I think the cool question you guys asked a minute ago was like, when I was talking about that like 1% to 2% performance thing, you kind of like said, like, how do you define performance? And I think that goes back to what your buddy was saying about the tubes. It's like some riders have always just defined performance as weight. So they're like, oh, it's lighter, that's better. And that's a very easy to understand one, because like a smaller number is lighter and you can just say that's better, but it's not that simple. And I think like when the road industry started tackling aero was when we started understanding like, oh, there's more than just weight here. So like you can add a pound to your bike, but it's faster. Like what? And it's the same thing with e-bikes and mountain bikes. So like there's always like a sweet spot for stiffness, to strength to weight, stiffness to weight, and you don't want to overdo it or underdo it, right? And I think like just because like a 36 factory series on an e-bike is going to be, I don't know, 100-ish grams lighter than the EMTB specific version, it's going to be a little like when you hard brake into a corner, it's going to walk a little bit more. Like you're not going to have the braking precision and the steering precision because it's going to be fighting your contact patch while you're like losing some torsional stiffness and some fore-aft stiffness to those thinner tubes. So
that
like
makes sense though.
Adding some weight, that. Now you have more control, you have better braking, and that to me is a performance advantage. So that advantage outweighs the weight disadvantage. And it's an e-bike, so who cares about 100 grams? So it kind of, you just have to like
even on most trail bikes, even to an extent on cross country bikes, I would way rather sacrifice a little bit of weight to have that much more precision in my steering and braking. And I mean, control is speed.
And you see that now with all the 120 XC bikes, right? Like,
exactly.
And what that's doing for XC racing is rad because the courses are so cool now. Like it's actually, the popularity of XC is like super high again. It's like, it's way more popular now that the courses and the bikes are rad.
Yeah.
I'm in.
We just got to bring that home. Got to bring it here so we can start making some cooler.
Yeah, I agree.
Cooler
I think
courses
Downieville is the
race.
closest thing we have to like a race that kind of shows that off, I went and did BC bike race this summer, and that was like been on my bucket list forever, and I can't recommend it enough. It was like 7 days straight of
Was that your first time doing it?
First time doing it. Like 7 days straight of just exactly those same kind of trails. Spencer, like very Downieville style, like, but just full race pace XC every day. And unlike Downieville,
I heard that's pretty like, because it's sleeping in the tent each night, getting your bike washed.
I didn't sleep in a tent, dude.
Oh, really?
I sleep in a tent a lot, but I wasn't sleeping in a tent there, man. I was like, I went with two buddies from work, and we all would just like buddied up and shared hotel rooms and stuff. And then one of the guys lived in the town over from the final town where we were at for like 4 nights. So we ended up staying at like a buddy's house there. So we did it a little fancier, but and I would recommend anyone who goes and does it. I would get a hotel personally.
I heard that's not like half of the race is just getting there, getting in the line, getting your bike washed, getting the tent, the food line, just everything.
Yes.
So are the top guys not? They're obviously getting hotels, and
I mean, I think the top guys are doing similar Airbnbs and stuff like that for sure. But it's still not like, you can still do that stuff on a pretty good budget. If you're like we all did with sharing rooms and stuff, it was still totally worth it. And they've done a good job with the format where like it used to be like 4, 5, 6 hour stages. Now they're like barely 2 hours. So you're really doing like, you're doing like an XC race full out every day, but you start at 9 a.m. You're done by like 11. If you're on the fast end, you're done by like 11 before noon. So then you come back, they wash your bike for you. They have like a WD-40, like bike wash station, or muck off. Give credit where credit's due. Muck off, big old, they totally wash and lube your bike, give it back to you. You can get your food, do the whole thing. And so you have a lot of downtime to chill. And there's like,
I couldn't do the tent part. Now I didn't know you could
you
leave and hit the Airbnb.
No, so
I think
you buy your race entry, right? Like that's like your minimum expense, but then it's like optional from there. You can do the tent thing. You can pay for them to transfer all your stuff, from stage to stage. Then you can do their meal plan. There's like all these optional things they add on that you can do if you want to, but they also have what they call like their van life section where like there's a cordoned off area for people who are like car camping. So you can just have your own vehicle, whether it's a van or a overlander truck or whatever.
Spencer, we're fucking in. We are in.
You guys go next year. I can set you up with the folks who put it on and stuff. Like they'd probably give you like a media price or whatever. It's it's worth paying full pop for. It was a super top experience, and the trails are just absolutely insanely fun.
And then you're saying these 2 hours, like you're selling me, because those 5 to 6 hours for like six, is it 6 or 7 days straight?
7 days straight. And first day is a prologue, so it's only like 30 minutes, you know. And then they have a couple like
2 hours for me usually.
Queen stage is like 2.5 to 3, you know. They had a couple stages that were in the 2.5 to 3 range, and then on average they were right around 2. So
I'm in.
Just good terrain, like really good terrain.
Was it like wet dirt too?
It wasn't blown, but it wasn't wet. Like it was perfect when I was there, because it had rained like the week prior.
What I would do for some wet dirt in Southern California right now.
Yeah.
It's coming.
It's coming soon. It's same thing here, guys. It's blown out here too.
Is it bad?
Yo, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. But you're selling me on this, because
it.
They had the BC bike ride.
Oh yeah.
Is that gone? I don't know if it's gone.
They've experimented with a number of things. They have a gravel race that they do.
No, man, no
they
gravel.
Have Megavolt, which is like their e-bike one. Which is pretty cool.
So they take batteries for you each time, or
I don't know what they do. I don't know how the format works, but it's less of a race and more of like I think the BC bike ride kind of became Megavolt. Maybe because it was like, as e-bikes got popular, it made more sense. Like, oh, if you're not here to like race, you really just want to ride these trails, like do it on an e-bike. And then the BC bike race still exists, but like I said, they've just adapted the format like to make sure
that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it used to be long stages with lots of like fire road and pavement and grindy stuff, and it was very like very endurance-y. And now it's just like you've got a lot of time in the day to like swim in the lake, the river, eat ice cream, whatever. Like it's good. It's good.
Eat ice cream. That's keyword.
Do it.
I'm there.
I'm in.
Give me some ice cream.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Damn, like revamp me for that race, because I've heard about it and I was like, man, that sounds gnarly, but it sounds amazing. The trails, like I love riding in BC, so
it's so good.
It's tough.
I think the only time we've ever ridden together was BC, and we
Oh
rode.
my gosh!
I mean, don't lie, I took you on good trails, huh?
Dude, yes, that trail was unreal.
So good.
Never seen Jesus so many times in my life, but it was a great trail. Like,
yeah.
And I think they ran that for an EWS or something.
Some of that stuff, some of the very top of the world stuff, and then some of that like Khyber Kush stuff. I think they've used bits of that for various.
That was the introduction to that new Enduro.
Mm-hmm.
I was in heaven.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was gnarly. Yeah, thank you again. That was, and then put us out on Creekside, right? And then we
came out of Creekside and just rode back on the path there. Yeah.
I've never rode that trail since, just to let you know.
We got to go back, dude. That was good.
I'm in. Yeah.
Whenever I go to Whistler these days, I never. Yeah, it was with me and Rob. Never ride the chairlift except like to get to the top of the world, if that. But then I just ride the valley, and those trails are so good.
I've never rode those trails. Except, I mean, just that one that we did with you. I've always just rode the park. Well,
for like the first 10 years, I'd go to Whistler or Crankworx and stuff. I'd always just ride the park all day. It's great. I mean, why not? But then, it started just the event's so big, so popular. By the middle of the week and everything, the trails are just so hammered that it got to the point where it was like people started showing me other stuff, and then valley trails. And then once you kind of get a taste of the valley trails, and if you don't mind pedaling, and now there's more e-bike access too. For a while there wasn't. The park, you'll never want to go back. I'm not even kidding. The valley is so good.
Because I am kind of over the park. I'll be honest. That's kind of, it's supposed to be a little bit, because you get the media pass, so you get free access to everything. And then, I shoot a few clients, make enough to make it all worth the point. I mean, I don't think anyone goes to Crankworx and gets rich, I think on the media level, but and I'm kind of just over the park. Like any kind of job that's came up for it recently, I'm like, I don't really know,
For me, it's like if I was going to Whistler for like a week or two with buddies, like I used to do for like vacations back in the day, like I would go not during Crankworx and like totally ride the park. Absolutely. But during Crankworx, the lift lines are so long, the trails are so clapped, like just ride the valley and have it to yourself, and it's so good.
What trails on the top of your list out there?
So I hate to blow stuff up, but like I took my new Stumpy out there.
I'll blow mine out. I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean,
which ones you're talking about?
The last few years, I think everyone's been talking about, like Into the Mystic and Lord of the Squirrels. Because it's just got that classic vibe of like big epic ride, right? You climb forever, you get way up into the Alpine and way up, into the snow.
I'm with you. I was just in Squamish
for
like a week with some people, and I wanted to go up there and do Lord of the Squirrels, and they were like, "What?" with some Squamish Lokes, and
They were like, "That's too much
That
pedaling.
sucks. Why? We got better riding down here." I'm like,
they do have great riding down there.
I just want to do a big
an
climb,
epic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that descent is just super fun too.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but just really fun. And then on the other side of the valley, one that I rode this year for the first time. It's not new, but it's new to me, and it's only a couple years old. It's called Bring on the Weekend. It's a really slabby, scenic trail. And I think what's so great about a lot of like that trail in particular is it's like hard to get to. It's off of Comfortably Numb, and it's easy to miss where it comes off. And just getting out to it is like, you got to be down to pedal. It's chunky, technical, physical climbing, and then traversing for a long time just to get to it. But what you're rewarded with is like, you drop in on this slab and you're just like looking over, I think it's Green Lake, just epic view. Like, I don't know if it's like 1,000 feet down to the lake or whatever.
And this isn't the one that you guys get the heli drop on, right?
No, but we've done quite a few of those too. And those are well worth the money too. I would do that, before I go and pay
Spencer
for a pass.
are part of this elitist group that gets to go on this cool heli drop.
I think it's $200 a person or something like that, dude. People can keep.
I'm talking about the pink bike one.
Oh,
whatever.
I haven't done it in years.
If you pay for it, it's $200. I think
it's only $200.
Yeah.
Okay. Might have to look into that next year.
It's worth it, man. It's worth it.
Yeah.
I haven't done the new one. I've only done Rainbow. The old
Rainbow's fun. They have that other new one, and then one year on the pink bike one, they took us on like one that's out kind of like the far like northeast end of Pemberton. That was super fun too.
That was really far, and there's supposed to be grizzlies out there, right?
There are grizzlies out there, man. In fact, a buddy of mine had an encounter with a grizzly just on top of Lord of the Squirrels, like just during Crankworx. Yeah.
How did I guess he's
alive?
Fine.
It was fine. Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dude, they don't want to eat you.
I don't know. I've just heard the grizzlies are gnarly. Okay.
Yeah, they are. They can be. They're much more territorial, but I mean,
this one, I think too, there was a cub involved, but it was like pretty far away. But like, Spencer, when you're first like, you get out of the trees and you have like those boardwalks.
Yeah.
And it's like swampy. It was kind of in that zone
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he saw it from pretty far away because there was a good line of sight and he was able to kind of stay away from it. Wow. I was looking at his Instagram stories going, that's a grizzly.
Sick.
It's a grizzly. I think I would have turned around.
It's a big dog.
Yeah, it's a big dog.
It's a big dog.
The bears are different there though. Like,
they're
very,
Have you ever like landed on one, like on Dirt Merchant or something? Like they're out there, like the black bears in the park, they're like super used to people. And like, I've had so many like over the years, like close calls where you're like literally like shoulder checking off a bear. Cause you're like, it's either that or we're both going down, and they don't get aggressive. They just run away.
I never, not in the park. It's always been down like, in the cabins and they're just like ruffling through your shit, right? The trash cans, and they kind of look at you and they're like, whatever, dude.
No, there's lots of videos out there of people, like you're just coming over a blind jump or whatever, and there's just a bear in the landing.
Damn.
Yeah, it
happens. I'm kind of happy not to have that. It's usually a mountain biker laying on the other side.
Yeah, that too. That too.
Yeah.
Hey, so I had another question for you, actually, kind of stepping back. I'm loving the conversation, but I have a slightly more serious question, I guess. Are you touching any of the other brands like that is under the Fox umbrella?
Yeah. We did kind of rejigger some stuff a couple years ago. Like I said, I joined as like brand manager for Fox and Marzocchi, so I was very, very focused on suspension only. But a couple years ago, I mentioned like the team growing and stuff like that, and we kind of realized like at the time we had 4 brands. It was Easton, Raceface, Marzocchi, and Fox, and not every brand needed the same exact approach or level of attention. And so, we had like a brand manager for East and a brand manager for Raceface. And then I was doing Fox and Marzocchi, and it was like, it just wasn't proportional. Like it made sense in one sense, but like we've now kind of changed it from like verticals around the brands to like horizontal. So like you'll have like digital marketing people who are working on all 4 brands. So that's when I switched to product marketing. Like I'm still sort of in charge of like suspension, but I've got a super sharp guy on my team who's focused on components as well.
And do you touch any of the off-road like truck stuff?
No, but not directly, not technically, but there's been some shifts around there too. And like our VP from our division recently kind of elevated, and he's overseeing that division as well now too. And so we're starting to kind of work on like some plans around like how do we all work together a little more aligned. Because I mean, at the end of the day, for a lot of consumers, like we did some brand platform work a few years back, and what we realized is that like more than half of our consumer base like has a Tacoma with like Fox shocks and a bike, right?
Exactly.
So like tailgate pads are kind of this cool in between, you know.
And you guys bring out the trucks to Sea Otter and stuff.
Yeah, we bring the trucks to Sea Otter. Like that's who we are. And so, you know, there's no other brand that can really say that, right? Like we don't make drivetrains and we don't do all this other stuff. Like we do suspension, you know, we do some drivetrain components in the other categories, but like we don't make derailleurs and all that stuff. Like Fox is suspension and we do all of it, you know, and if you go back, like I say, you go back to 74, like it's been a fun year because it's our 50th year, right? Since Bob started making shocks. And that was a big project of my own for the last, you know, few years. And one of the fun things that we've been doing, you guys might have noticed on our socials, like usually towards every Friday, we put up like a black and white post that's like a looking back moment of like 50 key moments in our brand's history where like you can say that like Fox products helped a rider or an athlete like push potential further in some way. And it started with, you know, Bob riding dirt bikes and going, these things are pretty cool, but like the suspension's not that great. I can make something better. And he decided to make shocks and they were better. And within like a year, they were like for sale, kicking ass. And within like 2 years, every single factory team had them. And that's why the brand ended up being called Fox Factory. So like the word factory goes right back to that. So, you know, that word's like ubiquitous in moto. It's like factory rider, factory this. Like that's why it's called Fox Factory.
Your factory if you got some nice stuff.
Yeah. So, you know, that's what we do. And you'll probably start to see in the eyes of the consumer, it's one Fox. So like, why have everything fully separate on the back end? And then, you know, you end up with like, maybe they're coming at it from a different way and that doesn't make sense. And we're coming at it from a different way. So we're working to try to kind of bring those two worlds back together a little more, but at the moment they're still mostly separate. And my involvement is limited to like, we've got Trail Trust, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but it's something we launched kind of early COVID days, as like our philanthropic arm for like giving back and making sure that like, you know, there's access and opportunities for advocacy, but like very specific to like, like building and preserving trails, both mountain and, you know, off-road use and stuff like that, but also creating opportunities for, you know, underserved communities to get access to this kind of stuff too. So that part of access is maybe a little bit of a twist compared to some of the other kind of comparable advocacy groups out there.
Yep.
And I'm on like the grant committee for that. So like when people submit, you know, for like grant money, I'll review those both for off-road and for bike. So like I get pulled in a lot of ways just because I know that world and I'm into that stuff. And like, I have like a couple off-road trucks and, you know, vehicles and stuff myself. So like, they know I'm into that world, but I don't have like anything official in my job title that like ties to it at this time.
We can lengthen your job title.
Yeah,
I know Austin,
you know, you want to do a Baja 1000. Let's go,
dude. I really do.
Go.
I do, and I'm stupid, but I want to do it in a bug.
Sick.
Dude, you got some balls.
I won't have much spine if I do it, but
yeah.
I just always think those things are the coolest, man.
Definitely don't do one that starts at La Paz.
Yeah.
Because you got to get there. You know.
I know. Yeah, Carlin always told me I was an idiot for wanting to race in a bug. I think side by sides are kind of the way to do it nowadays, you know.
Yeah.
But
and you guys sponsor some pretty good side by side guys that you could probably. I bet we could figure out how to do it.
Yeah, we could figure it out. That being said, you know, I've been in those rigs with like Rick Johnson and his son Luke a number of times, and you know, you might think you're hot shit until you get in with one of those dudes, and then you're like, they're literally running twice the speed, you know. And so you take twice the speed over 1,000 miles and it's like, or 700 or however many miles, of course, might be any given year. But and it's like, you know, snowball's chance in hell. But no one's going to take me on. No one's going to let me in their car. But it's pretty impressive to see what like someone like Rick or Luke can do behind the wheel of one of those things.
I kind of grew up in that world. I guess that's the best way. And I rode with Ken Block one time and I thought I was hot shit, like you're kind of saying there.
Yeah.
I never shit my pants so hard. I was begging him to like, hey, dude, you got to slow down. Like we're not
Please.
in a safe zone right now.
I just start laughing when that happens. Like I just laugh and laugh and laugh when I feel like I'm going to die.
Dude,
It's awesome.
not me. I'm like, yo, hey, let's calm this down a little bit, you know? Like,
Yeah.
hey.
Dude, Ken.
Yeah.
Like what a freaking legend, you know? And I think like, yeah, people like you who've been in a car with him, it's like, and I think most people know. But
Video
man,
doesn't do it honest.
I know, and I get so chapped when you see like, you know, keyboard warriors, you know, talking about like how he's wasn't like a real driver and stuff. It's like, get out of here, dude. That guy's one of the realest drivers ever was in terms of, it's a lot like, you know, when Pastrana left, I'm aging myself right now again, but like when Pastrana left racing to pursue freestyle,
yeah,
I heard so many moto dads like, oh, he's throwing his career away, all this stuff. He wouldn't be a household name if he didn't do that. He would have been a good racer. He always was a good racer, but like that wasn't what he wanted to do. And he changed the world doing it his way.
Yeah.
You know, and same with Ken, man. Like, you know, and just because he was a CEO and all this stuff first doesn't mean he can't also be one of the absolute best drivers ever, you know, ever in terms of all around just ability to hop into or onto anything and just absolutely crush it.
It is crazy. Like some of those guys that have that ability to just kind of look at a section, do like one test run or no test runs and just land it almost perfect. Like, I don't know how that you calculate that, because I've had a lot of broken bones from casing triples that I've jumped 100 times and for some reason or first time. So it's amazing to me. Like I'm a lot of respect for people that, and I see Spencer do some of these similar things. We'll go on rides, never rode the trail, and he already hits the stuff. And you're like, how do you calculate it that good and not think about stuff?
I remember Spencer showing up to Downieville one year on Cannondale, like way back. He'd never been there before, barely got to do one shuttle pre-ride or something. And you ran like a solid, like top 10 in pro, like over the weekend. I think you ran like 8th or something. And your times were super good and you're basically riding blind, you know? And I was like, that's super impressive. Yeah. There's people who had just different levels, man.
That was my first year. I can't believe you remember that. That's crazy.
Of course I remember that.
Spencer don't even remember it.
No, I got 8th. I got 8th on Cannondale Habit.
Yeah.
Show a ride biker team.
Yeah. I was hoping I kind of knew Downieville and I was going pretty good back then. And I'm like, I hope I can beat this kid. But Jasper. There it is. There it is. Ding, 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 ding.
I was called Jasper.
For
these guys,
So
him and Chris Reichert.
He was called Jasper because we were at a dinner at Interbike one year, you know, in the mountain bike action days. God bless Zap and Neil for bringing us all together.
First, before you kind of get into this, I just want to preface it by saying I was the Grom, okay? Like before Groms were ever even a thing, my email was grom@roadbikeaction.com.
Really?
Yeah, my business cards that they made for me said Grom on it. Like I was just a fresh out of high school kid that was building bikes and writing these silly little articles and just.
But they were taking photos of you too, man. They were using you like for all the stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they definitely were. But I was a fly on the wall for all of these meetings and whatever when everyone would come, and I'm so thankful for that. But anyways, I was at Interbike with these guys. So Zach brought
Spencer, I think, to dinner. We'd always do like an Interbike dinner with Zap and whoever else that we'd bring from the magazine and from Specialized. And so I think it was myself and Chris Reichert from Specialized, maybe Ned. I think Ned was with us. Yeah.
No, Ned was. Yeah.
Ned Overend was part of it too. And so Zap and Neil and I think John Carr was there, and Jasper and
one of Neil's buddies.
And Neil brought Timmy Beechwood or whatever. Timmy Beechwood. I don't remember the guy's real name, but.
I don't know.
Timmy Beechwood? I'm confused. What?
Neil brought a guy who. What was the deal? Who was this guy?
I don't remember. Tommy.
He was
helping with the booth. I think his real name was Tommy, and he helped with the booth. Road Bike Action had a booth, and handing out magazines and stuff. And I would walk around, take pictures, and be in the booth a little bit, and just be this guy. Tommy, I think was his name.
And he shows up to dinner. I think he got a little drunk, maybe had a couple drinks. And he he was like, he didn't know who anybody was, I don't think, but didn't he latch on to Ned, but he was calling him like
Neil Overland.
Neil Overland. Yeah. Instead of Ned Overland. And we're like, but he was like talking like he knew, and it was such a big deal, but like, but yet by the same time, like calling him the wrong name. And so it's like, obviously you don't know. Right. And And he had this Timmy Beachwood guy had this really like kind of annoying voice. And I think because he was getting drunk, it was getting worse. And he just was yapping his jaw. And I remember Zap was like really embarrassed, I think. And it was like, whatever. So then it ended up like everyone got fake names, because Ned Overend became Neil Overland. And this is before overlanding was cool. Then like, Spencer became Jasper somehow through that.
Okay.
And I tried to make it stick for a long time when he was a Grom, but he grew up and he built his own thing, and he created his own name out there. And I think Jasper it just kind of went by the wayside eventually. But I tried for years to. But
it's a good if you know,
calling him that.
Yeah,
it's a cool name.
It's fine. And they would send me when they would send bikes or whatever to the magazine. It would always say Jasper on it. It would never say like Jasper Road Bike Action. That's just they would always send it.
Wow.
Bikes, helmets, whatever. If it came from Specialized, it came to Jasper. And
wow.
I would receive it and I'd open it up and build the bike or whatever it was. That was kind of my job. And so that was Jasper.
Build the bike, Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper.
Yep.
All right. I'm introducing the podcast with Jasper in now.
There you go.
That's the plan.
I mean, I think it's a cool name. It could be your stage name, Spencer, when you're doing all your like cool like stunt stuff these days,
Jasper. Yeah,
Jasper.
That's it. We got
Jasper. Someone get Jasper. I like it. Well, maybe our next video we're going to do, we'll just call it Jasper, Spencer.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Interesting. All
right.
Yeah. Maybe this is where it sticks. Maybe this is it.
Yeah.
The reintroduction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All 69 of our listeners.
Days, man. Interbike.
Yep.
Interbike.
We were talking when Keegan and Tobin were on, we were talking about the Vegas Cross Vegas.
I love that
and how
one.
Crazy that event was.
Dude, the industry race was the craziest race. Did you ever do it, Spencer? Like,
yeah.
That was the craziest race because like, there was like 300 people in that field and it was a 30-minute race and it was that grass, that deep, slow grass, and it was always hot and dry and a bit of altitude out there. God.
Yeah.
I got some results there though. Fun. I was proud. I ran I think I got like 6th one year. Like, I had a couple pretty good results there. Like, I got a bunch of top 10s coming from like 200th place,
Yeah.
The first 2 minutes of that race were everything. And who was the king of making it count was freaking Slasher. Dude would start in 300th place.
Really?
Because we would get entries through sponsorships. Like his was through Giant at the time, and mine was through Specialized or whatever. And so they'd put you just kind of like in the like 180 to 200 range back there out of 300, and we'd have to fight our way through the pack. And dude, I mean, it helps that like when you turn Slasher sideways, he's this small. But the man, he don't get a nickname like that for nothing. Yeah. Like he could just cut through the pack and go from 200 to like top 5 in the first, like in the start shoot, dude, like whole shot, just
really
like nothing you've ever seen. And I would be like, how is he just absolutely smoked me and fit through every little hole. And I would be fighting my brains out. And I was a good racer and he would just absolutely on another level.
Because passing on a jet ski is way harder,
Seriously, anything on a stand-up jet ski is harder than anything that you can do anywhere else. And by the end of the race, I'd maybe catch him if I was lucky. But yeah, dude, that guy, freak. Yeah.
Really? I had no idea.
Oh, dude.
Okay.
And cross wasn't even his thing. He just kind of got into it, because it was popular and he was racing a bunch. And he ended up winning a national championship in North Carolina back in like 20, I forget if it was 16 or 15. But yeah, that was the first year I got a podium coming from the back and got all the way up to 4th, but he won his age group that year. We had some fun battles. I remember one year me and him were down at, there used to be this like really cool NorCal SoCal Showdown down in Bakersfield. The guy who puts on the rock cobbler, Sam Ames, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
He put on this NorCal SoCal Showdown. Well, it was called the Showdown because the thing is,
I remember it.
The way that, for like all the districts, like for state championships in biking, right? Like every state has like a championship, but California is this huge state and it's so big that they split it in 2. So they have the NorCal division and the SoCal division, but there's no official actual state champion. You're like the division champion. And so Sam had this brilliant idea. And the other thing they do is they lump Northern Nevada and Southern Nevada into that. Oh. So like if you're in Vegas, you get lumped into the SoCal scene. If you're in Reno, you get lumped into the NorCal scene, but you don't have your own thing. So Sam was like, I'm going to do my own. At the end of the year, like after the district championships, he would host this like weekend 2-day cool venue out in the middle of like Oildale, like on the edge of Bakersfield, 2-day event.
Hart Park.
Hart Park. And, you know, all the like hitters from NorCal and all the hitters from SoCal would come together. And so like Slasher would come, like Bostrom's, both Eric and Ben would come. I'm sure
Cody
you came
Kaiser.
Yeah, exactly. Cody would come down. Tobin would come to it oftentimes.
Yeah.
And it was a USAC race, so it was a good chance to grab some points because on the West Coast, there wasn't too many USAC races. And the way the points work, like the more USAC riders with USAC points that are racing, the more points there are kind of up for grabs. So like people would show up to it. And yeah, I remember one year we had this like, it was like 2017 or something like that. And yeah, like Slasher came, both Ben and Eric came. Cody was there. There's this kid, Jamie Driscoll was there. Lance Haydet was there. Like Ben Gomez Villafania was really fast back then.
Yeah.
He was there. Wow. We had like this stacked. It was so stacked. And I remember me and Slasher just had the most epic battles both days. And it was one of the few times I actually ended up getting him. Like I got him in a sprint because I had this huge hill climb and then like a sprint to the finish. And I just edged him out on the sprint. But it was like, that dude is such a worthy adversary. Like of all the years of all the racing and stuff, like we've probably raced each other a million times. I think I've only beat him like twice, you know, if that. Savage.
Nice.
A lot of respect for that dude.
Yeah, he's madman.
Yeah, especially to hop different genre, or I don't even know, different sports.
Yeah, all the stuff.
Right?
Yeah. I'd be hanging out with Vanilla Ice on jet skis one day, and next day he's cross racing in Bakersfield. What the heck?
That's a life right there.
Yeah. He's a
anything
savage.
to land you in Bakersfield. Nice, man. So then I guess it's safe to say you started at Easton. What year?
Well, funny thing is when I was at Bell, we had Easton as part of Easton Bell Sports. 2006 or so when I joined is right around the time we started merging, and I started working on like the Easton Moto bars and Easton Bike stuff in like 2007. And then when I left in 2011, Easton was still part of that. But then over the years, just the way the cards fell, Easton ended up under Fox. So when I went back to Fox, I kind of went back to Easton.
So you've seen the industry, then I guess it's safe to say you've seen us get through 08, right, through 10.
Yeah.
And now we've kind of gotten through whatever we are in now. I don't even know if we are in
getting
something
through it.
Yeah.
We're not through it yet.
We're going to be fine, I guess. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Like, what's up? You know, like give us a little lay of the land.
I think we're nearing the tail end of whatever it is, but it's a really unique one to try to dissect, right? Because it was, I think, precipitated kind of by COVID, but that also happened towards like the end of like a pretty long run of like up, you know, and growth. And obviously growth can't really be exponential. So yeah, I don't know, you know, it's hard to say what exactly happened, but COVID mostly kind of created this scenario where in simple terms, right? Like there was huge demand because a lot of people found themselves with time off and stimulus money or whatever. You know, some people put their mortgages on hold. There was all kinds of stuff going on. So people had money and they had time and they had a desire to recreate outdoors because that was about all they could do. You couldn't go to the movie theater. You couldn't go to the mall. You couldn't, you know, go indoors anywhere. Couldn't go to the gym, you know, things like that for a long time. So people had money, they had time, they couldn't do other stuff. So it kind of like every path just guided them towards bikes. Right. And so then there was this moment where there was no bikes because they all sold because the industry had been forecasting around normal models. And then all of a sudden this huge spike in demand, right? And then couldn't keep up. So then everybody's like hustling to how do we scale demand or supply to meet demand? And that takes time. You know, we own our own factory in Taiwan. And so like for us, it's like you have to hire people, you have to grow, you have to scale up. It's machines, it's tooling, it's everything.
Not happening overnight.
You can't do it overnight. So by the time you could do it, and in the time it was still growing and growing and growing, and it was almost the perfect storm because right when everybody in the industry effectively at the same time was able to actually meet demand just went away overnight, gone by. So now for us as a supplier, because like the vast majority of our business is OEM business. So like complete bikes from Specialized, complete bikes from Trek, Canada,
everyone,
whatever, right? Yeah, everybody. So for us, like now we'd sold all our product to them, but they now had enough bikes to last a while. So they weren't needing to buy anything from us, right? And so that's kind of the way the industry went for a couple of years. And we've just been working our way through this glut of inventory to get back to a spot, you know, where everyone can be more normal again. But it kind of, no one's really sure what normal is because there was like the old trend and then there was like the huge COVID spike and then the huge, you know, fallout. And I think what we're starting to see now that things are really stabilizing for the most part is like that, like if you were to take COVID out, like if you took a picture of the trend, right, it's kind of doing this, and then there was the COVID this. But if you take that out, the line picks up about where it would have been before.
Oh, so it is kind of landing for you guys then.
Yeah, it's starting to. But that was a tough pill to swallow for the whole industry. Like nobody, you want to believe like we can keep growing like this. This is great,
There was people at brands that I talked to that were like, it's never going to end. And I'm like, dude, it's going to fucking end.
It's going to end. It always, the bubble always bursts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for us, it's still like a situation where we still have a lot of OEM partners who need to move through some product before they're really going to continue to go big. And also, it's an election year. There's a lot of emotional investment and turmoil around that election. I don't think we want to get into politics, but
for sure,
just the election year scenario it's always the case.
It makes decisions on both sides.
People hold off financially.
Yes.
People hold off financially in election years, especially ones that have so much on the table, or at least that people perceive it that way.
But then so I guess
and inflation.
I guess where I was kind of going with it is like, are we going to see maybe not as much tech or I don't know, advancements for a little bit, because everyone is in this weird like stalemate. Like we got to get rid of these bikes.
We're
we got to
past
get rid
that
of this
now.
product.
We're past that. Like there was like a year or two where, product managers were telling us like, don't change anything because I don't want to change my BOM, like my build of materials. Like I don't want to change that, at all. Like, cause that's risk. So like, don't change anything. Just carry it over. Like no one's talking model years. It's just like sell it. And now we're definitely well past that now. I think in fact if anything, it's like MPI stuff, like exciting new product is what is selling. So like there's still a market for the higher end because there's enough people who are, insulated from the ups and downs of the market that like if there's something that's cool enough and interesting enough and exciting enough, then they will, cough up for it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that's going back to the mountain bike core or the core of the industry as a whole. And we're kind of losing those people that were just introduced to, maybe not losing, but you're not going to get that.
Well, they're not buying a brand new bike every couple of years or a year or two, like most of us, right?
Yeah, they'll be buying a bike in a couple of years though. Probably, for sure. When that bike dies. So
at least you hope so. I don't know. I see some old bikes around here.
And when I think the used market got flooded too, because a lot of those people who got into it then got out of it, and so that also didn't really help because that just further brought down the sort of the demand.
I'm sure you live in the same area, like we live in this area where it's just like there's only S-Works for sale. You can't sell anything besides that, and that's even at like such a low number.
Actually, man, I've sold a couple S-Works in the last year or so, and I've been blown away by how strong I feel like the market has been.
You and Spencer S-Works have this great selling technique. I'm gonna just send you my bikes whenever I need to sell them to help me sell these things, because
I don't know. I have a couple bikes for sale right now that I'm struggling to.
I got one that's sitting, but anything with S-Works on it has been an easier sell for higher dollar for sure.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are getting some toughness in it, because this is what I've been facing. Okay.
Speaking of like the state of the industry and stuff, what's your opinion and what are you seeing with Enduro as a whole? I feel like there's a lot of speculation with where
we're going in there,
where it's going, and who's doing it, what the UCI is doing with it, and if it's like if it has much of a lifespan left.
Yeah, I'll say like off the top, I don't have any like good insider info or anything that's like going to be revolutionary here, but my gut just feelings opinions. Are like, so I was around when Enduro kind of like rose so rapidly, and the reason that it did what it did was like, you probably remember, Spencer, because it was around the time we met each other, was when like Super Enduro was taking off before it became EWS and before it got folded into UCI and all that. But it was super popular. I went and did Finale Ligure in like 2012 or something, because we were launching an Enduro 2.9 and like we wanted to be at the heart of it all. But it was mind blowing because like there was maybe 600 riders or something like that, but it was all together. Pros, Jared Graves and Keen and stuff, like the two fastest guys were like all there racing, with everyone else. And you all line up, it's a big mass start. Everyone's going up the hill. It was like this really inclusive form of racing that felt like how we ride our bikes with our buds anyways. But then there's time sections. So you're like the part that you all climb for 2 hours on the fire with your buddy to get to the downhill, like that you're going to Strava, right? Like it was just that, but made into racing. Yep. And so it was something that we could all relate to. it made sense. And it was like the kind of bikes we wanted to ride, the kind of trails we wanted to ride, the way that we would ride them anyway. You just turn it into a race. Yeah. So that was why it blew up and why it changed everything like overnight, you know? But as the years have gone by, it's morphed from that into a full downhill racing season in a day. Yeah. You know, the transfer sections hardly exist. It's chairlifts for the most part. Yeah. You know, the stages are gnarly. They're shorter. They're, you know, downhill stage length, roughly race, like it's 3 minutes or whatever. Yeah. And it's just, I think they've lost the plot a little bit. Like it's not relatable. And then you just throw in the fact that it's hard to cover it. You know, so like people can't really spectate it the way that they can a downhill race or an XC race. Then XC racing popularity is way back up. Yeah. Actually just up. It's not even back up. It's just up.
There are almost mini enduro courses on some of those sections. They're sick,
and it's easier to film and easier to understand. And like the racing dynamics of like multiple people on the stage at the same time, like racing each other is something that's more dynamic. And then I think downhill's also been more and more popular the last handful of years too. So there's only so much attention span, I think. And like, for a while, enduro had all of it. XC didn't matter, and downhill for a while didn't even matter. People were asking, is downhill going to die because enduro's taking over? Yeah. And now I think it's just, you know, the pendulum has swung again, and enduro's going through some growing pains and identity crisis stuff. But I think some form of something like not too far from what's currently happening will figure out a way to be, you know, lucrative and prolific again in the near future. It's just, I'm not sure exactly what that means. You know, I think e-bikes have complicated it too, because you've got the e-enduro stuff. And so it's just growing pains. You know, it's awkward teenage years, and they just got to figure out what's next. And I know Chris Ball's been working on that a lot and talking to a lot of the stakeholders, and they've got some good plans in place that I think are going to address a lot of that. So I'm pretty hopeful that there'll be some good things on the horizon, but the economy's got to turn around too, because support's dwindling.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I think like kind of what you said, to the root of enduro was being with your buddies, doing what you already do, just with a bit of a racing part of it. I mean, you're not talking to your buddy that much going down a hill if you're riding it fast, but you're talking to him for the
transfer
full hour.
Stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Going up the hill.
Spend the whole day with your buds. I did Whistler UWS like that back in, I don't know, we launched another enduro back then, like 2017 or something. And yeah, a whole bunch of us did it, like 20 of us. It was so much fun riding all day, 6,000 feet of climbing in a day, just like big bikes. Awesome.
And that's exactly why it was fun. And I feel the same. And I've seen like this new trend that has come back in the last year or so, which is like running clubs. It's not cycling related, but people are all about doing these running clubs
6
a.m.
whatever.
Exactly. And they're getting couple hundred people. The Newport Beach Run Club is like 500 people strong every Wednesday or whatever day, and it's cool. And that's essentially what they're doing. They're just running with their friends, and they're not necessarily talking the whole run, but they're social, having a coffee. Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the coolest thing about enduro at the beginning. And I still firmly believe that it is one of the cooler parts
of it. That's the appeal to down country to me, or doing like the BC bike race.
Yeah, exactly.
In Downieville, like it's hanging by the river, it's camping, you know, it's like, you get to ride your bikes too, but exactly. That's why I think events like that are the big opportunity right now, is like the BCBRs and the Downievilles.
And
it's interesting to see some that go up and down, right? Like obviously
Downieville.
BC Bike Race had its moments where it goes up and down and has to evolve and change. Obviously Enduro's going through that right now. And stuff like that.
I think that's all it is. I think it'll get there.
Might take a little more of a hit.
If they got a beginner class at Downieville, I think I'm in, you know?
They do. They have all kinds of classes, man.
I'm in.
And there's like, there's all kinds of people there doing it. You got to come do it. It doesn't matter if it takes you however long. It's so fun, dude. Yeah. So fun.
Yeah. Last year I did it like a couple weeks off of a broken hand just to do it. I wasn't really racing. I mean, I was, but I was back of the pack, and it was so fun. It was a blast.
So fun. The trails are just so good, and the whole vibe's so good.
Yeah.
Definitely gotta come up, man.
Experiential racing.
You're selling me more.
And they're moving it to like second weekend of August next year, where it always historically was first weekend of August, and then the last couple of years they moved it to middle of July, because they're always trying to avoid conflicts with other events. But Northwest Tune-Up has gotten really popular, and that's the same weekend as middle of July.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
So now they're moving it to like second weekend of August, which I think will be great, because like that there's no real conflicts at that point. So
all right. And when does entries open? Because I need to
soon. I want to say, I think they open it in like later, like end of the year.
Is it a sellout type situation, or is it kind of trickle?
It does sell out, and the All Mountain sells out still pretty quick. But it used to sell out when they could only do like 200 or so riders, because it's a
pretty small town, correct?
Well, it's a small town, and the downhill
Super
day is
small.
a time trial, so they do like 1 minute gaps staggered, and there's only so many minutes, right? And then they have to like have time to sweep and get everybody off the mountain, because it's a big, I don't know, 4,000 foot descent or whatnot. And the Forest Service only allows so many permits for that. So because of the format, it's always limited to like, I think the number of people they can run through the All Mountain these days is like around 500. So
That's still a lot, though.
It's a lot more than it used to be. It used to sell out in 1 minute, like 1 minute. And now it like All Mountain sells out in like maybe like a couple days or a week. Yeah. And that's also because now there's just so many more races and like the Lifetime Series and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Where like
there is more races in America than there's probably ever been, right? For everything.
Way more. Way more. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. If you even go back 5 years ago, how many gravel races was that?
There was like a couple, but that's where Lifetime came in and kind of saw the opportunity, right? And like pulled it all into a series, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, shit, man. Sean, we're at 2 hours now here. Dude, I really appreciate your time. Like, definitely some more insight than I kind of, and I was funny because I was looking at your LinkedIn and I was like, oh shit, he worked at Bell. Yeah, pretty similar. I was like, oh wow, okay. It didn't even dawn on my mind. I always remembered you as the Specialized guy, right?
Yeah.
And then moved over to Fox. I didn't even remember the Bell days. So
yeah, it's another lifetime now, but yeah.
And you've inspired me to obviously do some BC bike race.
Yes, do it.
Yeah, you really talked me into that. So if I get Spencer to drag me along through it,
do it. And you can do it as solo now. You can do teams, 2-person or solo, whatever. You can do whatever you want to do.
I don't want to drag Spencer down. I'm not at that level.
I saw a couple guys doing it though that were mismatched on level, and it was kind of seemed like they were having a good time because they were just kind of there to have fun. And it was like, I don't know, I think it's no matter what you do, you're gonna if you go to BC Bike Race, you're gonna have a freaking blast. It's so rad.
All right,
can't say enough good things. Yeah,
you sold me.
Cool,
dude. Well, I really appreciate your time. Stoked you can come on.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, I guess we'll see you around. I don't even know what's
next.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to figure it out somewhere. Maybe 24 hours or something. I don't know.
Old Pueblo. I don't know if my heart can handle that.
I haven't been back in a few years. It's a good
dude.
one.
It's aggressive there, right? It's like
that's another fun one though, because it's not like technically super hard, but it's still really fun and flowy. And I don't know. I've only done that one time when Keegan did his solo record, but it's really fun. That's a cool event.
Yeah, I can't get over the cactus.
I ended up with some choyas all up in my legs in the middle of the night, and it was a thing. Yeah,
I'm out.
Yeah,
I can't do that
for sure. Yeah. Cool,
dude. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Likewise, good to catch up with you guys.
Yeah, we should catch up some more on some other ones and have you on. And I know I want to do it again. I already got my RV spot for Sea Otter, so
sweet.
Let's plan you to be on the live show and.
Let's do it.
Let's talk some shit and hopefully
we'll have some exciting products for sure.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. I'm in.
All right, guys.
You got to take that dog out, Sean. That thing.
I know it's dinner time. They want their food now.
I get it.
Same here.
It's like the curtain call, right? It's time to go. So
I can feel it from here.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy. Boys. I appreciate it.
Good catching up.
Oh, keep your browser open. We got to download this.
But I can click on leave, right?
You can click the leave.
Just leave it open.
Get out of here.
And we're good. We're good.
Peace.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks, Sean.
Later.
That was a deep dive.
13. Episode 13.
Episode 13.
Let's go.
Yeah, I like it.
We're here. Fun times. Good to catch up with them. And yeah, it's
cool to see the whole rounded aspect from maybe someone from the industry. These are type of the people that I always seem to talk to. So it's kind of cool to bring it into a conversation with some people to hear this, right?
Yeah.
These are the people I talk to. I mean, I don't talk to Sean on a daily thing, but there's a lot of people inside the industry that I talk to in the daily thing. And then talking about some of those things, it's kind of cool to just have it out in the open, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's super sick. And
then it's cool that you guys had some history of the RIP magazine,
Yeah, man. I am super thankful for them. They've given me a lot of opportunity, and that's why I definitely give credit High Torque Publications for a reason why I kind of
kind of got you into it, right?
100%.
Well,
I mean, it introduced me to so many people, got me in front of a lot of people. I made connections and friends with a lot of incredible people like Sean, and it's
But
fun.
I mean, you're also incredibly talented on a bike. Let's not.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. There's tons of talented people.
I get that, but you gotta have some of that, I mean, or you'd just be like me, working in industry, not in front of the camera. You know what I'm saying?
I was there.
Yeah.
I was that guy. I kind of am that guy, but
it's because you know how to clip in really good and clip out.
In front of cameras.
Yeah, you and your clip guy.
Stack some clips.
All right, what else should we cover? Anything else?
I don't know. That's here. It's dinner time, man.
Hold on. One thing.
Yeah.
Did Greg Menard just announce that he is retiring? This is his last race?
I didn't even see it. I wouldn't surprise me, but
yeah, I think he announced it.
Oh man.
He says this next race is like the last one, or at the end of the season, it's over.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, I don't know enough on him, but I definitely, that name is like a common name to talk about for downhill, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Pretty wild. Let's ride some bikes soon. We got to do a video, right?
Yep.
We got to do some shit.
Let's go. I'm ready.
That's what I got. I don't know what else we can dig into that wouldn't stick us around for another couple hours. So, thank you all. Catch you later.
Yeah, later.